Chapter 33:28. The huge fire phoenix dyed the starry sky red. Even the Feng people, who were extremely far away, could feel it. At this moment, in the Feng people's territory, the old man and the old woman were also looking at the distant starry sky with complicated gazes. The two of them could naturally feel that this aura was the bloodline power of the Feng people. However, this bloodline power had already reverted to its ancestors. Why was this so? It was probably because Feng Yu's bloodline power had been stripped away and returned to Feng Ling's body. Previously, Feng Ling had displayed great talent since she was young. This was also the reason why Feng Yu and his mother had attacked her. However, the two of them had never thought that Feng Ling's talent would be so great that it had even reached the level of bloodline reversion. It was worth noting that bloodline reversion was something that all Feng people dreamed of. Unfortunately, there were very few people in the history of the Feng people who could achieve this. The most recent person to achieve bloodline atavism was none other than the current Lord Starlord. In other words, the Feng people had forcefully forced a god-favored, one who was on the same level as the Star Lord out of the Feng people. If back then, the old man opened his mouth with a complicated expression, but in the end, he did not say anything. This was because at this point, there was no point in saying anything. Back then, they clearly knew the whole story and the truth, but no one was willing to stand up and speak up for Feng Ling. Even when Feng Yu and his mother were chasing after Feng Ling, no one from the Feng people said anything about stopping them. As such, it was obvious what Feng Ling's attitude toward the Feng people was now. Therefore, it was impossible for Feng Ling to acknowledge the Feng people, and the Feng people had missed such a peerless god-favored one for nothing. With the talent that Feng Ling had displayed, as long as the Feng people carefully nurtured her, the old man was confident that Feng Ling would break through to become a ruler. At that time, the Feng people would have another ruler, which would allow the Feng people to catch their breath. Not to mention, there were countless possibilities for a ruler like Feng Ling. Moreover, she was still so young. Looking at it now, comparing Feng Yu and Feng Ling, the difference was simply like heaven and earth. For so many years, he had possessed Feng Ling's bloodline power, but in the end, it didn't even have the slightest effect. It was like sitting on a mountain of gold, but there was nothing he could do about it. If he had known this earlier, the old man felt that he would definitely not have chosen Feng Yu back then. Instead, he would have unswervingly supported Feng Ling. Because compared to Feng Ling, Feng Yu was simply trash among trash. However, it was too late to say anything now. Everything had already been decided. Not only had he suffered heavy injuries, he had even let go of a true peerless genius. It was easy to imagine the feelings of the old man and old woman. Not only the two of them, but many experts from the Feng people were the same. Feeling the bloodline power coming from afar, all the experts from the Feng people fell into silence. The consecutive setbacks seemed to be telling the Feng people that their decline was a foregone conclusion, and no one could change it. The once insufferably arrogant Feng people seemed to be gone forever, and at least for a long time, the Feng people would not be able to regain their former glory. And the only chance they had was personally destroyed by the Feng people. Right now, Feng Ling was already thankful that she did not hate the Feng people, let alone help the Feng people. After all, no one would be able to let go of what the Phoenixes had done to her in the past. In addition to the Feng people, in the Phoenix clan's territory, Huang Yi also felt Feng Ling's bloodline power. After all, the Feng people and the Phoenix clan were of the same origin. Sitting in the courtyard and drinking tea, Huang Yi revealed a faint smile. Bloodline ancestral awakening? The Feng people actually have such a little fellow. It seems like the Feng and Huang Yi clans are bound together forever. Huang Yi seemed to have known that such a person would appear in the Feng people, because there was already someone in Phoenix who had undergone bloodline ancestral awakening. This person was his daughter, Huang Lin. Since there was someone in Phoenix who had undergone bloodline ancestral awakening, the Feng people should also appear. This was the law of the Feng and Huang Yi clans, and it was also the will of the heavens. And Feng Ling was someone from the Feng people whose bloodline had undergone bloodline ancestral awakening, just like the previous Star Lord and Huang Yi. However, this time, the Feng people were simply blind to have forced such a person out of the Feng people. Xiao Chun and the others did not know what Huang Yi and the others were thinking. They headed all the way to the White Rock continent. Their speed was not fast, and along the way, Feng Ling's cultivation had successfully stabilized at the Greater Combat Ancestor Realm. However, the increase in cultivation was secondary. More importantly, the return of the bloodline power made Feng Ling feel as if she had been reborn. Whether it was her talent or combat strength, there had been a qualitative change. If Feng Ling had broken through to the Combat Ancestor Realm before, her strength could only be considered as the weakest among the many kings. But now, after the return of the bloodline, Feng Ling's combat strength was completely different from before. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was invincible among her peers. After completely fusing with her bloodline power, Feng Ling slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Xiao Chun, Feng Ling did not think much and immediately knelt down. "Senior, Feng Ling is willing to serve you for the rest of my life." This was what Feng Ling had decided from the beginning. Xiao Chun had avenged her and helped her regain her bloodline power. Feng Ling was willing to follow Xiao Chun. Hearing this, Xiao Chun did not immediately agree. Instead, he smiled and said, "You don't have to do this." "No, I've made up my mind. I hope that you'll agree, Senior," Feng Ling said firmly. Now that she had taken revenge, Feng Ling had lost her direction. Following Xiao Chun seemed to be her only choice. Xiao Chun did not have much of an opinion about Feng Ling. Moreover, it was indeed a good thing to have her around. After all, with Feng Ling's talent and strength, it was certain that she would break through to become a ruler in the future. It could be said that she was a combat strength that could not be ignored. However, Xiao Chun did not want Feng Ling to make a decision so easily. Instead, he hoped that she could really think it through. "There's no rush. If you want to follow me, then follow me for the time being. As for the rest, we'll talk about it after you've thought it through." Hearing this, Feng Ling wanted to speak again, but this time, Xiao Chun did not give her a chance and interrupted her. "Also, I'll leave this guy to you. Whether you kill him or let him go, it's up to you." After saying that, Xiao Chun walked away, leaving Feng Yu for Feng Ling to deal with. At this moment, Feng Yu's eyes were filled with the flames of jealousy as he looked at Feng Ling. Why is it that I clearly possess her bloodline power, but the result is completely different? Why? Why can Feng Ling make the bloodline power revert to its ancestral state, but I can't do it? Please add it to your collection, monthly votes, and recommendation. Chapter 33-29. Feng Yu looked at Feng Ling with an unwilling expression. He had clearly snatched her bloodline power away from her. Moreover, after so many years, Feng Yu had tried countless methods, but he had never succeeded in activating the full power of the bloodline power. Just now, Feng Yu had seen with his own eyes that Feng Ling had only fused with the bloodline power, and her bloodline had directly undergone atavism. Feng Yu could not accept this no matter what. Could it be that he was really inferior to Feng Ling? The same bloodline power was useless to him, but was it so powerful to Feng Ling? This was the thing that Feng Yu could not accept the most. He was unwilling to admit that he was inferior to Feng Ling. Nonetheless, the truth would not change because of his denial. Feng Ling had regained her bloodline power and had successfully undergone atavism. Her talent and strength were completely different. Feng Yu could not compare to her at all. Moreover, after losing his bloodline power, Feng Yu was basically a cripple. It was like confirming a saying, "If it was not yours, so what if you snatched it away?" She looked at Feng Yu indifferently. Xiao Chun had placed his life in her hands. Feng Ling did not hesitate and directly killed him. All these years, Feng Ling had thought of killing Feng Yu and his mother countless times to avenge herself. At the last moment of his life, there was not much fear in Feng Yu's eyes. This was slightly unexpected. There was no begging for mercy as expected. Facing death, Feng Yu seemed to be very calm. Nonetheless, when he was facing death, the only thing he was unwilling to accept was why he could not compare to Feng Ling. He had clearly put in so much effort, but in the end, it was like a joke. Feng Yu was dead. He was personally killed by Ling. The group continued to advance toward the White Rock continent. Soon, they arrived at the heavenly White Rock Lake. Here, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun met Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Seeing that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had returned safely, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They had naturally heard about what had happened recently. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had successfully broken through to become rulers. This was naturally something worth congratulating. Little brother, big brother has sent back a message. He has successfully broken through to the divine ancestor realm and has been released back to the eastern region. However, the old man has ordered him to make a trip to the western region. Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian had gone to the north region previously. Now, they had successfully broken through to the holy ancestor realm. Moreover, after studying in the northern region for so long, the two of them should have gained a lot in the Tao of formations. However, at this time, the two of them had already rushed to the western region. It was likely that the situation in the western region was not too stable. As array masters, the two of them were far more useful than ordinary martial artists. Therefore, it was understandable that Old Man Dong Wang would transfer the two of them to the western region. As long as Xin Yuan Ling was fine, Xiao Chan was naturally not worried and nodded. I reckon that it won't be long before we have to leave for the western regions. Huang, he had told him some things about the western region, and he had learned all of this from the Star-Lord. The Azure Dragon Galaxy was clearly going to war with the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. As the situation became more and more tense, rulers like Xiao Chun and the others would have to rush to the front lines of the western region sooner or later. This was understandable, and they could not refuse. After all, they were the top combat forces of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. In the face of such a war between two galaxies, Xiao Chun and the others had no right to refuse. However, what Xiao Chun did not expect was that the situation in the western region was worse than he had expected. The actions of the Azure Dragon Galaxy had greatly exceeded his expectations. At this time, in the western palace of the western region, there were already more than 20 rulers and more than 100 kings of the War Ancestor realm gathered together. They originally thought that there would be a buffer period, but the situation in the past few days had greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. In the main hall, the Eastern Emperor, the Western Emperor, and the other rulers sat together. Everyone's faces were filled with worry. Damn it, these guys are getting more and more overboard. Yeah, the movements of the Azure Dragon Galaxy are getting faster and faster. We can't let down our guard. That's right. We should mobilize more powerhouses as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the Azure Dragon Galaxy suddenly attacks, we might be caught off guard. The forces of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy in the western region were already very powerful. Not to mention the Star-Lord and Elder Master Bai. There were more than 20 rulers. However, the Azure Dragon Galaxy was even more exaggerated. A few days ago, at the border of the two galaxies, the number of rulers in the Azure Dragon Galaxy was only slightly more than 10. However, after a few days, the number of rulers in the Azure Dragon Galaxy had already exceeded 30. What kind of concept was this? The strength of the two galaxies was actually not much different. 30 rulers already accounted for more than 80% of all the rulers in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. It was the same for the Azure Dragon Galaxy. With so many rulers gathered, there was no need to say what the Azure Dragon Galaxy wanted to do. Everyone knew what their intentions were. Moreover, other than the rulers, the number of kings of the War Ancestor realm was also increasing. Such a move naturally made the Fire Phoenix Galaxy have no choice but to be on guard. Just as everyone was discussing, suddenly, a king at the peak of the War Ancestor realm ran in with large strides. The expression on his face was very solemn, and there was even sweat on his forehead. To be able to make a king at the War Ancestor realm so nervous, it was obviously not a small matter. Seeing this, the West Emperor changed his usual cheeky expression and asked with a solemn expression, "What's wrong?" This king was from the West Imperial Palace. Faced with the West Emperor's question, this person took a deep breath and said loudly, "Something has happened. Something has happened to the space-splitting barrier." The space-splitting barrier was the border between the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. It separated the two galaxies and was also the only way to contact the two galaxies. At this moment, hearing that something had happened to the space-splitting barrier, everyone's expressions froze. One of the rulers asked, "What happened?" The Azure Dragon Galaxy opened a passage and entered our side without permission. The news just came back that the two sides have already come into contact, and a battle has broken out. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. So fast. It had only been a few days, and the Azure Dragon Galaxy had already taken the lead. This was the first time the two sides had come into contact, and a battle had broken out since the beginning of the confrontation. This was an extremely important signal, because once there was a first battle, it was very likely that it meant that the war was about to begin. The collision of the two galaxies had truly begun at this moment. Thinking of this, the rulers looked at each other and could see a hint of seriousness in each other's eyes. Please collect monthly vote recommend. Chapter 33:30. All the rulers looked worried because it was a sign that a great war was about to begin. The battle between the two sides had yet to escalate to a full-scale war. In fact, the ones who were fighting were world lords and ancient life forms. To be honest, a battle of this level would not cause too serious a consequence to the two galaxies. However, they could not let their guard down at all because this was a sign. Right now, it was only a battle between ancient life forms and world lords. What about later? The kings and emperors of the war ancestor realm would definitely be gradually implicated as well. At that time, it would be the time for a full-scale war between the two galaxies. Got it. Go down and closely monitor every movement of the barrier. After listening to the ruler's report, the West Emperor waved his hand and said, Hearing this, the king bowed respectfully and then left. At the same time, on the other side of the barrier, in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, a group of rulers from the Azure Dragon Galaxy had also gathered. However, compared to the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, they seemed much more relaxed. The reason was very simple. This time, they were the ones who planned to cross the barrier and take the initiative to clash with the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Therefore, the rulers of the Azure Dragon Galaxy were not too surprised by this. They had broken through the barrier and taken the initiative to cross the barrier to start a battle. This was also a test for them. It seems that the Fire Phoenix Galaxy is also prepared. Of course, how could the Fire Phoenix Galaxy not be prepared for a battle between two galaxies? Should we continue now? There's no point in such a small fight, right? It can't cause any substantial damage to the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Hee, a great war will break out in the end. Right now, both sides are just testing each other's strength and attitude. As for how much damage will be caused to the other party, it's still too early. There's no rush. Let's do this for now. Let the people below act according to the situation. Many rulers said unhurriedly. After this probing battle, both the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had suffered losses. On the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side, two ancient life forms were killed, and the Azure Dragon Galaxy was almost the same. However, the lives of a few ancient life forms were nothing to these rulers. Perhaps in a universe, ancient life forms were already very powerful existences. However, in a galaxy, ancient life forms were nothing. It couldn't even affect the overall situation. For the time being, they would continue to probe. As for rulers like them, it was not the time to make a move yet. The Azure Dragon Galaxy was not fully prepared yet. If a battle between rulers broke out at this time, neither side would want to see it. With the tacit approval of the rulers, the people below were naturally more unscrupulous. Ever since the first conflict broke out, the two sides had conflicts almost every single day. At first, it was only the Azure Dragon Galaxy's cultivators who entered the Fire Phoenix Galaxy through the space-severing barrier and took the initiative to attack. But as time passed, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's martial artists were clearly enraged and began to take the initiative to provoke. Moreover, while the Azure Dragon Galaxy remained silent, the martial artists of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy also began to cross the border and take the initiative to fight. Battles broke out more and more frequently, and the scale of the battles grew larger and larger. In the beginning, it was only a battle between a dozen or so people, but later on, it developed into a battle between hundreds and thousands of people. In addition to the increase in the number of people, the strength of the participating martial artists was also constantly increasing. In the beginning, only ancient life forms and a few world lords participated in the battle. Later on, more and more world lords also rushed to the front line. The level of the battle instantly increased. Even now, from time to time, holy ancestor powerhouses would appear. In yesterday's battle, the holy ancestor powerhouses of the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had appeared. Although there was only one person, there were too many hidden things behind it. With a holy ancestor powerhouse personally participating in the battle, there would definitely be a second, a third, and even more so, it would become more and more difficult to control. In fact, this was indeed the case. After the first holy ancestor powerhouse participated in the battle, the shadows of holy ancestor powerhouses could be seen in almost every battle. From the beginning to the end, there was only one holy ancestor powerhouse. Both sides lined up a holy ancestor powerhouse as if he was the leader. However, the number would definitely continue to increase. On this day, there was finally a change in the battle. The martial artists of the Azure Dragon Galaxy took the initiative to cross the barrier and broke out in battle with the martial artists of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Both sides were led by a holy ancestor powerhouse, but the Azure Dragon Galaxy took the initiative to change. After the first two holy ancestor powerhouses broke out in battle, a holy ancestor powerhouse suddenly appeared on the Azure Dragon Galaxy side. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy naturally did not expect the sudden appearance of a holy ancestor powerhouse on the Azure Dragon Galaxy side. If he didn't stop this divine ancestor, the consequences could be imagined. In such a battlefield where holy ancestor powerhouses were the strongest, an additional holy ancestor powerhouse was definitely enough to change the outcome of the battle. The target of this holy ancestor powerhouse was also very clear. He directly targeted the holy ancestor powerhouse of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. The two joined forces. After a fierce battle, the holy ancestor powerhouse of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was killed on the spot. After that, more than half of the remaining martial artists of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy were also killed. It was not until the reinforcements of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy arrived that the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy chose to retreat. This was the first time a holy ancestor powerhouse had fallen on both sides. The news naturally reached the Western Imperial Palace as soon as possible. Upon hearing that a holy ancestor powerhouse had fallen on the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side, the Western Imperial Emperor, Eastern Imperial Emperor, and the other sovereigns' faces turned ugly. The value of a holy ancestor powerhouse to a galaxy was far from what a world lord could compare to. The two were completely different. Perhaps the sovereigns would not care too much about the death of a world lord, but the fall of a holy ancestor powerhouse could not be treated casually. Moreover, after the first holy ancestor powerhouse fell, more and more holy ancestor powerhouses would fall. The situation kept escalating and getting out of control. It was not hard to imagine that the time for the two sides to go to war was not far away. However, before that, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would definitely take revenge. It was impossible for them to just let the matter rest. The Azure Dragon Galaxy had killed their holy ancestor powerhouse. Therefore, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would naturally kill their holy ancestor powerhouse. Please add this to your collection. Please recommend me. In a chapter. Chapter 33-31. Following the death of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's first divine ancestor powerhouse, more and more divine ancestor powerhouses joined the battle. On the Azure Dragon Galaxy's side, divine ancestor powerhouses were quickly killed. This also caused the battle to instantly rise to a new level. The battle between divine ancestor powerhouses became a normal thing. From the beginning, there were only a few divine ancestor powerhouses. Now, almost every time there was a conflict, there would be at least 10 divine ancestor powerhouses participating in the battle. The scale of the battle was constantly increasing, and neither the Azure Dragon Galaxy nor the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had the slightest intention of stopping it. The sovereigns on both sides did not make any moves for the time being, as if they were allowing the people below to fight. On this day, a battle broke out between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy again. Both sides had more than 10 divine ancestor powerhouses appear. The battle was extremely fierce, and the divine ancestor powerhouses were in danger of dying at any time. As for the cultivators below, there was no need to talk about them. There were people dying at every moment. This was war. It would devour lives at any time, anywhere, like a giant beast with a bloody mouth. The battle cries and the aftermath of the collision of various martial skills swept across a large area of the galaxy. Even Sacred Ancestor Realm experts began to show signs of dying as the battle continued. First, a divine ancestor powerhouse of the Azure Dragon Galaxy was killed. Then, the Azure Dragon Galaxy seized the opportunity to kill a divine ancestor powerhouse of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Both sides had divine ancestor powerhouses fall, and the remaining divine ancestor powerhouses were also heavily injured. If this continued, there would definitely be more deaths. However, after several rounds of fighting, neither the Azure Dragon Galaxy nor the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had the slightest intention of backing down. The battle between two galaxies did not allow for retreat. If one retreated, the other side would press forward and beat the dog while it was down. It was an irreconcilable battle. It could only be stopped when one side admitted defeat or was directly wiped out. It was an extremely fierce battle, and this was just an abbreviation of the countless battles that had occurred during this period. It was not just one battle that was so fierce, but almost every battle was like this. The battle lasted for more than 10 days before it ended, and countless people on both sides had died. In West Imperial Palace, the sovereign's expressions did not change when they heard the result of the battle. However, the coldness in their eyes grew stronger. In one battle, 7 Sacred Ancestor Realm experts had fallen. The same was true for the Azure Dragon Galaxy. In fact, the Azure Dragon Galaxy had lost one more Sacred Ancestor Realm expert than the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. The situation was escalating. At this moment, a ruler finally spoke. The situation is getting out of control. It's time to mobilize more rulers. A large number of divine ancestor powerhouses had already been killed or injured. Next, it should be the battle ancestor powerhouses' turn to participate in the battle. Could a battle between rulers still be far away? Therefore, it was time to make preparations. This was to deal with the large-scale battle that could erupt at any time in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Hearing this, the other rulers also nodded in agreement. However, the matter of mobilizing the rulers still required the Star Lord to make the decision. They were all rulers, and none of them were qualified to mobilize other rulers. In response, the West Emperor said, "The Star Lord already knows about the rulers and has already passed down the order. We should deal with the kings first." The number of rulers was not enough, and the number of Battle Ancestor Realm Kings was also not enough. They needed more Battle Ancestor Realm Kings to rush to the front line. Tiantai, of course, the rulers were in charge of these matters. The Star Lord had indeed begun to mobilize more rulers to the western region, including Shao Chun and Lin Yun, who had just broken through to the ruler realm. They had already received orders from the Star Lord's palace. In the heavenly white rock lake, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and Tiantai sat together. Just now, the 3 of them had received a message from Black Matriarch. The Star Lord had ordered the 3 of them to rush to the western region immediately and prepare to deal with the Azure Dragon Galaxy's attack at any time. It seems that the situation in the western region is worse than we imagined. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in such a hurry to go. Yes, according to Black Matriarch, this time, 10 rulers have finally been mobilized to the western region. In this way, the number of rulers in the western region has completely exceeded 30. They have already accounted for more than 80% of the rulers in the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy. There's no other way. Even the divine ancestor realm powerhouses have suffered a large number of casualties. The situation is obviously getting out of control. The 3 of them said in a deep voice. This time, it was not just them. Even the old man and old woman from the Phone People, as well as Huang Yi, were going to the western region. In this matter, no one had the right to refuse. It was related to the safety of the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy. How could they casually refuse? Without wasting any time, Shao Chun and the others headed to the Phoenix clan's territory on the same day and rushed to the western region with Huang Yi. Originally, Huang Lin wanted to go with them this time, but Huang Yi directly refused. A war between two galaxies was not a joke. Although Huang Lin's talent and combat strength were heaven-defying, who could guarantee her safety in a war of such a scale? Most importantly, Huang Lin's experience in the martial world was almost zero. It was impossible for her to participate in a war of such a scale as soon as she arrived. At that time, perhaps some people who were weaker than her could use any method to kill her. Therefore, Huang Yi could not let Huang Lin go to the western region. In this regard, Shao Chun and Lin Yun did not say anything. No matter how Huang Lin tried to persuade them, they did not speak up for her. There was nothing to prepare. They brought some powerhouses from the Phoenix Galaxy and rushed to the western region. The closer they got to the western region, the more they could see that many spatial spirit boats were constantly advancing toward the western region. The starry sky, which could be said to be empty, was now filled with many spatial spirit boats. Such a scene was not something that could be seen at any time. It could even be said that it was rare. Martial artists from a Fire Phoenix galaxy were sitting on these spatial spirit boats. Most of them might not have a strong cultivation, but because of this war, all of them were transferred to the western region. Everyone was a little afraid of the place that they were about to go to. However, more of them were filled with fighting spirit. After all, no matter how much power struggle there was in the Fire Phoenix galaxy, when faced with an external enemy, everyone knew how to choose. Once the Azure Dragon Galaxy conquered the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, these people would only be able to live like slaves. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 33-32. In the face of an external enemy, everyone was naturally united against them. This was a major matter that concerned the survival of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. In front of such a major issue, everyone knew how to choose. However, there were always some exceptions. Just as Shao Chen's group was advancing toward the western region, a commotion suddenly broke out in the fleet of many spatial spirit boats. The reason was that a young prodigy of the Feng people had taken a fancy to a young girl. This young girl was also a disciple of a large sect in the central region. However, she was definitely incomparable to the Feng people because the strongest person in this sect was only a king of the War Ancestor realm. There were no sovereigns in this sect. In fact, this was normal. After all, there were so many forces in the central region, and those that could have sovereigns were as rare as phoenix feathers and water chestnuts. Because of this, when a young girl faced the prodigy of the Feng people, she was naturally terrified. The prodigy of the Feng people was also incomparably overbearing. He directly jumped onto the young girl's spatial spirit boat and asked her to be his maid. "Young master, now that we are facing a great enemy, we're going to the western region to kill the enemy. I'm afraid this is a little inappropriate, right?" In the face of this prodigy of the Feng people, the sect master did not dare to offend him and could only speak carefully. This was how it was when one's strength was inferior to others. No matter how furious one was, one could only endure it. As for asking the young girl to be the maid of the Feng people's prodigy in front of them, this was definitely impossible. Although this young girl's talent was ordinary in the central region, she was definitely a top genius in their sect. How could they give up just like that? Moreover, if the prodigy of the Feng people recruited a maid, it would not end well at all. Many of the Feng people did not treat outsiders as humans at all. If those maids and servants went to the Feng people, no one could say for sure when they would die. Therefore, to be the maid of the Feng people's prodigy was simply courting death. However, after hearing this, the prodigy of the Feng people's face darkened. Another cultivator of the Feng people beside him even shouted coldly, "Impudent! My princess has taken a fancy to her. That's her good fortune. How dare you complain here?" "No, young master, please calm down." The sect leader immediately lowered his head and admitted his mistake. Their sect was no match for the Feng people. A few elders from the Feng people would be enough to destroy them. Although the sect leader had heard about what had happened to the Feng people recently and knew that the Feng people had suffered heavy losses, the sect leader didn't dare to offend them. Quite a number of Battle Ancestor Realm and Saint Ancestor Realm powerhouses had fallen in the clan. But even so, they were still incomparable to him. Facing the insolent Feng people of Tiandu, the sect leader could only lower his voice. As for the young girl beside him, although she was extremely unwilling and furious, what could she do? She could only choose to remain silent. This was because once she refused or had the intention to resist, the genius from the Feng people would definitely not let her off. At that time, not only would the sect not be able to protect him, they would even be implicated because of him. Although the people from the other major forces saw everything that happened here, no one chose to stand up for them from the beginning to the end. It was obviously unwise to seek help from the Feng people for an insignificant sect. The weak sects didn't dare to do so, and the sects that weren't afraid of the Feng people didn't dare to do so because it wasn't worth it. After all, what did this sect have to do with them? What good would it do for them to help? If they angered the Feng people, it might even bring trouble to them. After all, the Phoenix clan was famous for being a mad dog in the central region. They would simply bite anyone they could lay their hands on. Moreover, they were completely unreasonable. Facing such a lunatic, everyone naturally had to stay far away from him, lest they invite trouble onto themselves. Cut the crap. Let her come with me. At this moment, the young master of the Feng people had obviously lost his patience. He waved his hand and said impatiently. He didn't want to listen to any reason at all. This woman was indeed good-looking. Because of this, the genius from the Feng people valued her. As for other things, he didn't care at all. What special period? What does it have to do with me? It's your fortune that I have taken a fancy to you. How dare you reject me? He didn't give the other party the right to choose at all. The sect master wanted to say something. Seeing this, the genius from the Feng people frowned and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Sensing the murderous intent, the sect master panicked a little. Unfortunately, he didn't have any chance at all. The genius from the Feng people still attacked. Since he could be called a genius, his strength and cultivation were naturally not weaker than Feng Yu. He had also reached the entry level of the War Ancestor Realm. The sect master was only at the Divine Ancestor Realm. Obviously, he wasn't a match for the genius from the Feng people. Seeing the finger light with murderous intent coming straight at him, the sect master's expression changed drastically. However, it was obviously too late now. Killing people in public seemed to be nothing to the prodigies of the Phoenixes. It was as if the person he killed wasn't a human, but an ant. Everyone around felt sorry for the sect master. What would he do? He had been targeted by the Feng people. This was the outcome. The Feng people were indeed hateful, but no one dared to stand up and uphold justice. Just when everyone thought that the sect master was about to die, a young girl appeared in front of him out of thin air at the critical moment. She casually waved her hand and blocked the attack for him. Seeing the young girl who suddenly appeared, everyone was stunned at first. The genius from the Feng people's face darkened as he shouted coldly. Feng Ling. The person who came was Feng Ling. Seeing her, the genius from the Feng people naturally couldn't help but be filled with murderous intent. However, the current Feng Ling was no longer the Feng Ling from before. After seizing back her bloodline power, Feng Ling's cultivation was already at the greater success stage of the War Ancestor Realm. In terms of combat strength, she far surpassed the genius from the Feng people. Therefore, even though he was furious, the genius from the Feng people still suppressed the anger in his heart and didn't attack directly. What are you doing? This matter doesn't have anything to do with you, right? His tone was ice cold as he looked at Feng Ling while gnashing his teeth. What did this sect have to do with Feng Ling? Why did she have to do this? Facing this, Feng Ling's expression was cold and indifferent as she replied with a voice filled with contempt. It doesn't matter. However, Xiao Huang has ordered that the Feng people are not to cause any trouble. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. Since Xiao Chun had broken through to the Emperor realm, he was naturally addressed as Xiao Huang. Furthermore, the palace of the Star Lord had already announced to the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy that Shao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through to the Emperor realm. Furthermore, the two of them had already ascended onto the Emperor rankings board and were already recognized as emperors by everyone in the Fire Phoenix galaxy. So, with Xiao Huang, could it be that Xiao Huang who had ascended to the Emperor realm a few days ago? It should be. It said that he's the same as Lin Huang from the Eastern region's Imperial Palace. Begging for your collection, begging for your monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 33:33. The names of Shao Chun and Lin Yun had resounded like thunder throughout the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy. This was especially so after they had ascended onto the Emperor ranking of the Star-Lord's palace, causing them to become even more well-known to the people of the world. Within the Fire Phoenix galaxy, every single emperor was recorded in detail on the Emperor ranking. Not only was it a kind of honor, it was also a kind of status and authority. That was because once one ascended onto the Emperor ranking, it meant that one had already been acknowledged by the Star-Lord's palace. Once one was acknowledged by the Star-Lord's palace, one would possess an extremely large amount of authority. Firstly, the emperors on the Emperor ranking would automatically obtain the position of an elder of the Star-Lord's palace. Not only would this elder position receive the protection of the Star-Lord's palace, one would also be able to obtain quite a bit of cultivation resources. What's more, this was an extremely high status in itself, one that could be said to be second only to the Lord Star-Lord. This was the reason why the surrounding people were so astonished when Feng Ling announced Xiao Huang's order. Compared to the others, the young Heaven's Pride from the Feng people had an extremely furious expression on his face. It wasn't as if he didn't know about the matter of Shao Chun and Lin Yun causing a ruckus in the Feng people's territory some time ago. Killing Feng Yu's mother and capturing Feng Yu alive was something that he had personally witnessed. It could be said that on that day, Shao Chun and Lin Yun had completely trampled on the face of the Feng people. At this very moment, Shao Chun actually wanted to target him. That's right. In the eyes of this Heaven's Pride from the Feng people, Shao Chun's actions were aimed at him. He simply didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. From the start till now, in the eyes of this Heaven's Pride from the Feng people, being able to catch his eye and become his maid was her honor. How could he allow her to refuse? Secondly, Shao Chun had acted to stop him. That was like a dog trying to catch a mouse, meddling in other people's business. What did it have to do with him, Shao Chun? He simply didn't know what he was talking about. Therefore, with his heart burning with rage, this Heaven's Pride from the Feng people looked towards Feng Ling with a gloomy expression before shouting out with an ice-cold expression. Isn't Xiao Huang's meddling too much? Also, who do you think you are? How dare you spout nonsense in front of this young master? This prodigy from the Feng people looked down on Feng Ling from the bottom of his heart. Feng Ling was an existence that was not accepted by the Feng people at all. Previously, she had even fled everywhere, struggling at death's door. So what if he regained his bloodline power now? In the end, they were still not accepted by Feng people. However, this prodigy had never thought that the Feng people would not accept Feng Ling now. To put it bluntly, as long as Feng Ling was willing and nodded, the two ancestors of the Feng people would have invited her back to the clan. What a joke. The Feng people wouldn't reject a peerless genius whose bloodline had returned to its ancestral state unless they were stupid. Therefore, it wasn't a question of whether the Feng people would accept Feng Ling, but whether Feng Ling was willing to go back to the Feng people. Do they really think that the Feng people are still the Feng people of the past? Feng Ling was not in the mood to argue with this elite of the Feng people, so she replied coldly, "Get lost. If you don't, you'll die." The prodigy from the Feng people was already unhappy with Feng Ling. When he heard this, he was instantly enraged. A person who used to be an ant actually dared to speak to him like this. "You're courting death." With an angry roar, the prodigy from the Feng people immediately attacked Feng Ling, facing the attack of this prodigy from the Feng people. Feng Ling looked at him with disdain. He was just at the beginning of the combat ancestor realm. Where did he get his confidence from? The current Feng Ling was not afraid of the Feng people at all. Firstly, it was because her bloodline had returned, and her strength and talent had undergone an earth-shattering change. Secondly, it was because Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were behind her. Were the Feng people very strong now? Perhaps, but to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, it was nothing. If it weren't for the Star Lord's words, Huang Yi, Xiao Chun, and Lin Yun would have already destroyed the Feng people. She was completely fearless, so she naturally didn't care about this prodigy from the Feng people in front of her. She had already given him a chance, but since he wanted to think about it wholeheartedly, who could he blame? Without the slightest intention of retreating, Feng Ling directly faced the attack of this prodigy from the Feng people with a palm strike. The attacks of the two collided fiercely, but it was obvious that this prodigy from the Feng people was directly suppressed by Feng Ling as soon as they came into contact. There was a gap in cultivation, a gap in combat strength, and even a gap in talent. He was inferior to Feng Ling in all aspects, so the result was obvious. This prodigy from a Feng people was quickly defeated. Get lost. Feng Ling didn't kill him. She didn't want to blow up the matter. After all, everyone was rushing to the western region. Internal strife was obviously not a good thing. Unfortunately, Feng Ling's kindness turned into fear in the eyes of this prodigy from the Feng people. He thought that Feng Ling didn't dare to kill him because she was afraid of his identity as a prodigy from the Feng people. For a moment, this prodigy from the Feng people felt that he could do it again. He struggled to get up and looked at Feng Ling coldly with a savage smile on his face. Aha, kill me if you can. Do you dare? If you kill me, the Feng people won't let you off. It was unknown if it was because the Feng people had declined too quickly that many Feng people hadn't adapted to the fact that the Feng people had declined. Outside, they still did whatever they wanted. They were extremely domineering and unreasonable. Little did they know that the current Feng people were no longer the Feng people of the past. The battle in the Phoenix clan's territory had completely made the Feng people lose their former strength. Seeing the arrogant appearance of this prodigy from the Feng people, Feng Ling frowned. Killing intent continued to gather in her eyes. Before coming here, Xiao Chun had said that she could kill him. However, she had done so for the sake of the overall situation. However, this prodigy from the Feng people didn't understand anything. He thought that she was afraid of him. It was simply laughable. He couldn't even see the facts before his eyes. It wasn't just Feng Ling. The surrounding cultivators were the same. Was this prodigy from the Feng people an idiot? He couldn't even see the situation. She didn't kill him because she was afraid of him? What was he thinking? No one felt that Feng Ling wouldn't dare to kill this prodigy from the Feng people. That was because Xiao Huang and Lin Huang stood behind her. The two of them didn't fear the Feng people at all. Furthermore, the two of them had personally gone to the Feng people's territory not long ago. They had no problem killing someone in front of the two ancestors of the Feng people. Would they be afraid of the Feng people? That was simply a joke. Just when everyone thought that this prodigy from the Feng people had turned into an idiot, without any warning, a cyan sword beam instantly shot towards him from afar. Astonishingly, its target was that arrogant prodigy from the Feng people. He didn't even have the time to react. In fact, he didn't even have the time to let out a miserable shriek as the sword beam pierced through his forehead. Dumbfounded, he fell to the ground. Perhaps this prodigy from the Feng people never thought that he would die in such a manner. Furthermore, he didn't even know who had killed him. All he saw was a cyan sword beam flash past him before he died. Begging for your collection, begging for your monthly votes, begging for your recommendation. Chapter 33-34. Following the death of the Feng people's heaven's pride, everyone present instantly quietened down. At the same time, a frightening pressure soared into the sky from the spatial spirit boat that the Feng people were on. The old woman's face was gloomy as she appeared out of thin air. In front of so many people, a young heaven's pride of the Feng people was killed just like that. He truly deserved to die. Her ice-cold gaze looked towards the spatial spirit boat in the distance. Impressively, this spatial spirit boat was the one that Xiao Chun and the others were on. In fact, everyone present was very clear that the person who had taken action was Xiao Chun, the famous Xiao Huang of the central region. Xiao Chun, Do you think that we, the Feng people, are easy to bully? Her gaze was ice cold, while her words were filled with endless killing intent, as if she wanted to skin Xiao Chun alive. However, facing the old woman's expression that seemed as if she wanted to eat someone, Xiao Chen's extremely indifferent voice rang out from within the spatial spirit boat. Stubborn. You deserve to die. What's the matter? Do you, the Feng people, want to stand up for him? He was simply not afraid of the enraged old woman. If she wanted to fight, Xiao Chun would accompany her. At this very moment, Xiao Chun was no longer the ant that was chased all over the place by the Feng people. Facing the Feng people, the current Xiao Chun was not afraid at all. Not to mention a mere young heaven's pride. Even the elders of the Feng people would be killed if they dared to be disrespectful to the emperors. Xiao Chun did not care about what the other emperors were thinking, and whether they were afraid of the Feng people or not. In any case, he absolutely did not care about the Feng people, much less fear them. Hearing Xiao Chen's reply, the old woman's face could already be said to have turned extremely gloomy and had even become somewhat malevolent. In front of so many people, Xiao Chun did not give her the slightest bit of face. This was the first time that the Feng people had suffered such a humiliation in all these years. Once upon a time, even emperors had to give some face to the Feng people. Not for any other reason, but because their Lord Star Lord was the Feng people. However, after the battle in Phoenix's territory, many rulers seemed to have understood the Star Lord's intention. They were no longer as respectful to the Feng people as before. Many rulers were even more unwilling to talk too much nonsense with the Feng people. This was normal. After all, even Star Lord was dissatisfied with the Feng people. How could the other emperors be nice to the Feng people? It was worth noting that the real trump card of the Feng people, which made many rulers fear, was the Star Lord. Once the Star Lord was no longer on the Feng people's side, then what was there to fear about the Feng people? Xiao Chun did not show any mercy, which made the old woman want to fight him several times. However, the old woman hesitated when she thought of Xiao Chen's current strength. This was because even though Xiao Chun had just broken through to become a ruler, his combat strength was not weaker than hers at all. If they really fought, it was not certain who would win. Even if the Feng people made a move, Xiao Chun still had Lin Yun and Huang Yi by his side. If they really lost, it would be even more embarrassing, and the Feng people would be even more embarrassed. Therefore, reason kept telling the old woman that now was definitely not the time to continue fighting. This was definitely not a wise choice. Her eyes were fixed on the spatial spirit boat, where Xiao Chun and the others were. Many people around her could not help but want to make a move. After all, as the great ancestor of the Feng people, almost everyone knew the old woman's temper very well. She would definitely not be at a disadvantage at all. Today, she was even looked down upon by Xiao Chun. Based on everyone's understanding of the old woman, she would definitely be furious. Nonetheless, what no one expected was that the old woman, who had been revealing killing intent and even had a terrifying aura flowing around her, actually chose to leave after staring at the spatial spirit boat, where Xiao Chun was for a long time. Yes, the old woman did not choose to make a move in the end. She did not even say anything. She was terrified and directly left. This was completely different from everyone's understanding of the old woman. She was definitely not a person who could swallow her anger. Now, facing Xiao Chun, the old woman actually swallowed her anger. Not to mention other things, did this not mean that the old woman did not dare to offend Xiao Chun? For a moment, countless guesses emerged in everyone's hearts. Nevertheless, no matter what, everyone had a higher opinion of Lin Yun. This ruler, who had just broken through, was actually able to suppress the Feng people's great ancestor, causing the Feng people's great ancestor to not dare to act rashly at all. The old woman's departure put an end to this matter, but after that, there were many guesses. Some said that the old woman was afraid of Xiao Chun. Some said that the Feng people had declined, and in short, there were all kinds of guesses. Nevertheless, without exception, everyone had a higher opinion of Xiao Chun. After all, being able to suppress the Feng people's great ancestor and make him not dare to make a move was something that even many veteran rulers could not do. However, Xiao Chun did it, and he did it in front of everyone. He suppressed the old woman to the point that she could not do anything at all. Xiao Chun did not care about the outside world's evaluation at all. Xiao Chun knew why the old woman retreated, so he did not take it to heart. Since the Feng people did not provoke him, Xiao Chun could not be bothered to pay attention to them. Nonetheless, if the Feng people did not change their character, they would probably face a disaster. Not to mention, the Feng people had suffered heavy losses, so it was even more so. The Feng people ceased all activities, while the sect master and the young lady from a small sect kept thanking Fengling. Given their status, they naturally could not come into contact with Xiao Chun. After all, Xiao Chun was a ruler, and they could not meet him as and when they wanted to. Therefore, they could only express their gratitude to Fengling. Fengling only nodded slightly and did not say anything. Soon, she returned to Xiao Chen's side. Such a small sect was no longer worthy of Xiao Chen's attention. The reason why he made a move earlier was that he could not stand the actions of the Feng people. What kind of ability did they have to bully such a small sect? It was not that Xiao Chun pitied them, but that he simply could not stand them. The rest of the journey was very peaceful. The phoenixes no longer dared to cause trouble everywhere because they seemed to have understood a principle. The phoenixes were completely different from before. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Since the Feng people were quiet, the others naturally quieted down as well. After entering the western region, Xiao Chen's group separated from the rest of the group and went straight to the Western Imperial Palace. Naturally, most people could not go to the Western Imperial Palace. They had to go to the space-splitting barrier. It was the first time they had come to the Western Imperial Palace. When Xiao Chen's group arrived and saw the Western Imperial Palace in front of them, they felt a chilling aura. Many experts had gathered here, and it was obvious that they were ready to fight. Moreover, the people in the Western Imperial Palace were at least in the Divine Ancestor Realm. There was no one below the Divine Ancestor Realm. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 33-35. It could be said that all the powerhouses in the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy had gathered in Emperor Shi's palace. One could feel a terrifying aura gathering here. With the arrival of Xiao Chun and the others, Old Man Dongwang also appeared in front of everyone immediately. When he saw Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, the old man was the first to speak with a smile. "You two little guys, not bad, not bad. You didn't disappoint me." Old Man Dongwang was naturally very gratified that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through to the Emperor's stage. They were originally his subordinates, but now they were standing on the same level as him. Old Man Dongwang was not jealous at all. Instead, he was very happy. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were also quite respectful towards Old Man Dongwang. After all, Old Man Dongwang had always been good to them, and the two people in Emperor Shi's palace liked him very much. When they saw Old Man Dongwang again, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun also greeted him with a smile. The three of them chatted for a while, and Sun Huang Yi also slowly walked down from the spatial spirit ship. When he saw Huang Yi, Old Man Dongwang's expression was a little complicated. It was not that Old Man Dongwang had a deep friendship with Huang Yi. After all, when Phoenix was trapped in the abyss by Star-Lord, Old Man Dongwang had not broken through to the Emperor's stage yet. Therefore, Old Man Dongwang and Huang Yi did not have any mysterious interactions. However, Old Man Dongwang also knew that the birth of Phoenix this time was the decision of Star-Lord. For many high-level emperors, the matter of Phoenix and the Feng people was not a secret. The Star-Lord's decision to allow Phoenix to be born was probably due to the pressure brought by the Azure Dragon Galaxy. It was precisely because the pressure brought by the Azure Dragon Galaxy was too great that the Star-Lord made such a decision. Facing Huang Yi, Old Man Dongwang took the initiative to cup his hands and bow. After all, this was a ruthless person who had once competed with the Star-Lord. If it wasn't for the fact that he had made a wrong move back then, perhaps it would have been hard to say who would be the Star-Lord now. Facing Old Master Dongwang, Huang Yi only nodded. At the same time, Elder Master Bai quickly appeared in front of them. As someone who had always been by Star-Lord's side, Old Master Dongwang naturally knew Elder Master Bai. Elder Master Bai's expression was obviously a little ugly when he arrived. He only glanced at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun indifferently before looking at Huang Yi. "The Star Lord wants to see you. Come with me." Elder Master Bai was definitely not as kind to Huang Yi as Black Matriarch, because he was a member of the Feng people and had always been loyal to the Feng people for so many years. This time, Huang Yi, Xiao Chun, and Lin Yun had caused the Feng people to suffer such a great loss, and even killed many members of the Feng people. One could imagine how he felt. If not for his fear of Huang Yi, Elder Master Bai's attitude would probably be even worse. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun didn't care about this. After bidding farewell to Old Master Dongwang, they left with Huang Yi. They couldn't be bothered to argue with Elder Master Bai. Although Xiao Chun and Lin Yun didn't care about these things, Huang Yi was obviously not so easy to deal with. Along the way to the entrance of a small world in the depths of the Western Imperial Palace, Huang Yi glanced coldly at Elder Master Bai, who was in charge of leading the way. A faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he spoke in a contemptuous tone. "This is the only time. If you still have this attitude the next time, even the Star Lord won't be able to keep you." After saying that, without waiting for Elder Master Bai's reply, he led Xiao Chun and Lin Yun into the small world. Elder Master Bai's arrogant attitude in front of Huang Yi made him unhappy. However, this time, on account of the Star Lord, Huang Yi didn't do anything to him. However, if this guy still had this attitude the next time, it wouldn't be so easy. After being scolded by Huang Yi like this, Elder Master Bai's eyes flashed with a cold light, but he didn't dare to say anything more. He absolutely couldn't treat Huang Yi as an ordinary emperor, because he wasn't an ordinary emperor to begin with, but an existence that surpassed the emperor level. Along the way, he obediently brought Huang Yi, Xiao Chun, and the other two to the place where the Star Lord was. There was still a dense spiritual power surrounding his body, and one couldn't see the appearance of the Star Lord at all. One couldn't even tell whether he was old or young. It was the first time Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had seen the Star Lord, but Huang Yi and the Star Lord were obviously very familiar with each other. Looking at the Star Lord who had been waiting for the three of them, Huang Yi didn't stand on ceremony and sat directly opposite the Star Lord. The Star Lord seemed to be sizing up Huang Yi and said indifferently, "I haven't seen you for so many years, but you haven't changed at all." "Huh." In response, Huang Yi sneered. The Star Lord didn't care. He looked at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun as if he was sizing up the two of them. After a long while, the Star Lord spoke. "The two of you are quite talented. I also have an opportunity for you." Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had just broken through to become emperors, but they were not weaker than veteran emperors. More importantly, the two of them did not have any heaven-defying talent. In terms of background, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun could not compare to the Feng people and Phoenix people. They had the most ordinary bloodline. However, by relying on such a bloodline, the two of them managed to reach this step and surpass countless people. In other words, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun could be said to have created a bloodline on their own. Their bloodlines were very ordinary, but their descendants had a great advantage and a strong bloodline power. This was the gospel brought to their descendants after they became powerful. The Star Lord valued Xiao Chun and Lin Yun very much. As he spoke, the Star Lord gestured for Elder Master Bai to bring the two of them down. He had already prepared a considerable opportunity for them. Huang Yi said indifferently, "Go ahead. The things that this fellow will take out won't be too bad. They'll definitely be of great benefit to you now." In front of the Star Lord, Huang Yi was still very relaxed. He was not sure that the person sitting in front of him was the Star Lord of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. The Star Lord didn't seem to care about Huang Yi's attitude and didn't seem to be angry at all. On the other hand, Elder Master Bai's expression was incomparably cold. It was unknown if it was because of Huang Yi's words just now. In this regard, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun didn't meddle in other people's business. Since the Star Lord had given them an opportunity, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun naturally couldn't refuse. Just as Huang Yi said, as the Star Lord of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the things she took out shouldn't be too bad. Following Elder Master Bai, They quickly left the small courtyard. After Xiao Chun and Lin Yun left, Huang Yi's gaze once again fell on the Star Lord in front of him with a light smile on the corner of his mouth. "It's just the two of us. Is there a need to pretend like this?" As he spoke, Huang Yi made a cup of tea for himself. Hearing this, the rich spiritual power around the Star Lord also began to slowly dissipate, revealing his true appearance that had been hidden all this time. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 33-36. In the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, even if it was a ruler, there were probably not many people who had seen the true appearance of the Star-Lord. Other than Elder Master Bai and Black Lady, only Huang Yi and a few others had seen her. As the dense spiritual energy that enveloped the Star-Lord slowly dissipated, the Star-Lord's true appearance finally appeared in front of Huang Yi. What was unexpected was that the famous Star-Lord of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was actually a woman. Moreover, she was an extremely beautiful woman. She was completely flawless, no matter how one looked at it. Even Qin Shu, Lu Bingning, and the other women seemed to pale in comparison to the Star-Lord. It would not be an exaggeration to say that she was the most beautiful woman in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. In the face of such a woman who could make any man lose their mind, Huang Yi didn't have much of a change in expression. He just smiled and said, "How many years has it been since I've seen your true appearance?" In response, the Star-Lord's expression was incomparably cold. She was not affected by Huang Yi's words at all. The two of them were competitors in the past. In order to compete for the position of Star-Lord of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, they could be said to have fought many times. At that time, both of them were peak rulers, and then they almost crossed half a step into the Monarch realm at the same time. Their strengths were the best in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, and no one could compare to them. However, at the last moment, the Star-Lord took the first step and obtained the recognition of the galaxy's spirit, becoming the Star-Lord of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. As for Huang Yi, as the loser, he had been trapped in the Earth Abyss's evil cave for so many years. After so many years, Huang Yi was unable to take even a single step forward. This was not because Huang Yi did not work hard enough, nor was it because his talent was insufficient. It was entirely because Huang Yi's path of martial arts had come to an end. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy already had a Star-Lord, so it was impossible for Huang Yi to possess the cultivation of the Star-Lord. Therefore, it was impossible for him to improve any further. Looking at Star-Lord's beautiful yet familiar face, Huang Yi couldn't help but think of the past. "Do you still remember our agreement?" Star-Lord asked indifferently as he looked at Huang Yi calmly. In response, Huang Yi answered non-committally with a smile. "Looking at your face, I'm even more certain that you and I don't get along. It's been like this since the beginning." "Cut the crap. I'm asking you a question." The Star-Lord was a little displeased with Huang Yi's attitude. She had no interest in chatting with him here and there. If it weren't for Huang Yi's help against the Azure Dragon Galaxy this time, she probably wouldn't have released Phoenix and the whole guy. Perhaps he wanted to imprison this fellow until the end of time to prevent him from causing trouble. In order to make Huang Yi agree to his conditions, the Star-Lord made a lot of concessions. She even used the phone people to vent Huang Yi's anger in order to make him take action. Looking at the Star-Lord's increasingly unfriendly expression, Huang Yi laughed loudly. "Aha, you're still the same as before, getting angry at the slightest provocation. You're the Star-Lord now. How can you be like this? If you say another word of nonsense, do you believe that I'll let you return to the Abyss Evil Cave and never come out again?" Facing the Star-Lord, who was already on the verge of rage, Huang Yi immediately stopped laughing. Of course, he believed what this woman said. Although this woman was born with an icy face, she would definitely do what she said. However, he wasn't her opponent now, which was very annoying. "Isn't it just a joke? Is there a need to be like this? Don't worry about what I promised you. No matter how unbearable I, Huang Yi, am, at least a person who keeps his word." Seeing that Huang Yi finally became serious, the Star-Lord's expression eased a little, but then he said solemnly, "Keeping promises is one thing, But can you do it or not? You have to know that you're under a lot of pressure, and it's very likely that you'll die. I know. Isn't it just the 2 Star-Lord candidates in the Azure Dragon Galaxy? Don't worry, I can still hold them back with my life. The main reason why the Star-Lord was so modest to Huang, it was because of the 2 Star-Lord candidates in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. The so-called Star-Lord candidates were actually existences like Huang Yi who had stepped into the ruler realm. They were not Star-Lord, nor were they as strong as Star-Lord. However, it was not a problem for them to deal with ordinary rulers. Moreover, once the old Star-Lord left, these Star-Lord candidates would become the next Star-Lord's competitors. Back then, Huang Yi and the Star-Lord were also Star-Lord candidates. However, ever since Huang Yi was trapped in the Earth Abyss's evil cave, for some reason, no Star-Lord candidates had appeared in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. The Star-Lord candidates were not controlled by the Star-Lord. It all depended on oneself. If one's cultivation did not surpass that of a ruler, one could not become a Star-Lord candidate. Even if one were to say that one was a Star-Lord candidate, it was just a facade. As for the Azure Dragon Galaxy, there were now 2 Star-Lord candidates. These 2 Star-Lord candidates were the most difficult to deal with in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. This was because when the time came, the Star-Lords from both sides would have to restrain each other, and the rulers would also have their own battles. The Azure Dragon Galaxy would have 2 extra Star-Lord candidates in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. One should not underestimate these 2 people. If no one stopped them, they were fully capable of killing rulers. It was definitely not a joke. It was precisely because of this that the Star-Lord had released Huang Yi and the entire Phoenix Galaxy. He had even agreed to many of Huang Yi's conditions. This was because in the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy, only Huang Yi could contend against the 2 Star-Lord candidates in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. As for the others, even if they were rulers against them, they would just be delivering food. There was no comparison at all. However, although he had reached a deal with Huang Yi, the Star-Lord was still not confident. After all, Huang Yi was only one person, while the Azure Dragon Galaxy had 2 Star-Lord candidates. If both sides were evenly matched, no one could say for sure whether Huang Yi could stop them. Moreover, this was not just a matter of blocking one battle. As long as the 2 galaxies started fighting, Huang Yi had to block the 2 from beginning to end. Otherwise, once the 2 of them were free, it would cause an immeasurable blow to the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. He was not confident, but there was no other way. When the time came, the Star-Lord would not be able to help him because the Star-Lord of the Azure Dragon Galaxy would not give him the chance. Looking at the Star-Lord's incomparably solemn gaze, Huang Yi waved his hand indifferently. It's meaningless to say anything now. After all, who can guarantee these things? We can only try our best. However, I'm very curious. Why doesn't our Fire Phoenix Galaxy have any Star-Lord candidates? It's been so many years. Did you do something behind the scenes? Yeah, you're really bored. Do you think I would do such a thing? Hearing Huang Yi's words, the Star-Lord's worry instantly dissipated. Instead, he looked at Huang Yi with a cold gaze. This guy really didn't know how to speak. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 33-37. For so many years in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, other than Huang Yi, there was indeed no new Star-Lord candidate. But to say that this was because of the Star-Lord, or that she had done something behind the scenes, was definitely nonsense. After all, Star-Lord wasn't that bored. Moreover, she wasn't afraid that the appearance of a Star-Lord candidate would threaten her position or anything. It was very simple. Although the Star-Lord candidate sounded very close to Star-Lord. However, as long as the current Star-Lord still existed, then the Star-Lord candidate would always be a candidate. It was impossible to threaten the Star-Lord. Just like Huang Yi, after so many years, his cultivation had hardly improved. This was the restriction of the rules, and no one could break it. Unless the current Star-Lord was no longer around, then these Star-Lord candidates would have the possibility to attack the position of Star-Lord. Otherwise, they would always be Star-Lord candidates. Therefore, no matter from which aspect, it was impossible for Fire Phoenix Star-Lord to do anything behind the scenes. After all, The more powerhouses there were in the Fire Phoenix galaxy, the better it was for the entire galaxy. What's more, there was no threat to the Star-Lord, so there was even less reason to do so. In addition, Huang Yi knew Fire Phoenix, Star-Lord, very well. This was a very proud woman, and she wouldn't do anything behind the scenes. When the two were fighting for the position of Star-Lord, she didn't even bother to do anything behind the scenes, let alone now. What she said just now was just a little evil to Fire Phoenix Star-Lord. It could be considered that the barbarians had a little bad taste of their own. Seeing Huang Yi smiling without saying anything, Fire Phoenix Star-Lord obviously couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him and directly asked him to leave. Remember your responsibility. Your residence has been prepared for you. Go. Hearing this, Huang Yi didn't stay. It was obvious that this woman was on the verge of exploding. In the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy, Huang Yi was probably the only person who dared to speak to her like this. The others, including the emperors, did not dare to speak to the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord like this. Even if he didn't die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. After Huang Yi left, the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord closed her eyes. She seemed to be in a state of cultivation, and her face was once again shrouded by dense spiritual energy. That peerlessly beautiful face was once again completely covered. The conversation between Huang Yi and the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord was naturally unknown to outsiders. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, under the lead of Elder Master Bai, they also came to the secret cultivation room that the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord had prepared for them. Inside the secret chamber, there were 2 spiritual pools and 2 medicinal pills. The spiritual pools and medicinal pills were personally refined by the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord, and their effects were actually above those of the heavenly White Rock Lake. One had to know that the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord had spent a lot of natural treasures for the 2 spiritual pools and the 2 medicinal pills. For any emperor, that was definitely enough to make them go crazy. Even Elder Master Bai could not help but look at the 2 spiritual pools with a hint of jealousy in his eyes. He had no doubt that if he could soak in the spiritual pools, his cultivation would definitely improve greatly. Unfortunately, although he was jealous, Elder Master Bai did not dare to cross the line in the slightest. This was a reward given to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun by the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord. If he dared to forcefully seize it, or if he dared to obey the Star-Lord's orders, he would definitely be dead. Therefore, even though Elder Master Bai was envious of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, and even hated them because of the Phone People's matter, he still obediently completed the task given by the Star-Lord. However, after bringing them to the secret cultivation room, Elder Master Bai did not have the slightest intention of staying. He left after saying that. This was prepared for you by the Star-Lord. Cultivate well. Out of sight, out of mind. Seeing that the Elder Master Bai had left, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun did not care and quickly fell into cultivation. The opportunity that the Fire Phoenix Star-Lord had prepared for them was indeed of great significance to them. Not only could it completely stabilize their cultivation bases that had just broken through to become rulers, but it could also help them break through to the lesser mastery ruler level. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun cultivated in seclusion again, but the outside world was not quiet at all. As more and more martial artists came to the Fire Phoenix Star system, so did the Azure Dragon Star system. Both sides had gathered all their forces here. As their forces became stronger, the friction between them naturally became greater. Battles between Holy Ancestor Realm powerhouses were already commonplace occurrences. After Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others arrived in the western region, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were cultivating in seclusion, so they did not stay idle and went straight to the front line. Now was the time for the Holy Ancestor powerhouses from both sides to fight. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were Holy Ancestors, so they naturally could not stand by and watch. Moreover, Long Qing and the others took the initiative to go to the front line because of the orders of the rulers. Just like before, the 2 sides broke out in battle again. This time, it was obvious that the Holy Ancestor powerhouses from the Fire Phoenix Star system were at a disadvantage. Whether in terms of numbers or strength, they could not compare to the Azure Dragon Star system. On the Fire Phoenix Star system side, They thought that they were going to lose this time. The few holy ancestor powerhouses in the lead felt bitter in their hearts. Looks like we've fallen into a trap this time. The Azure Dragon Star system obviously came prepared. That's right, 15 holy ancestor powerhouses. Hell, what a big move. 15 holy ancestor powerhouses. What kind of concept was that? The difference in numbers was more than double. Moreover, among the 15 holy ancestor powerhouses, several of them were at the peak of the holy ancestor realm. It was not difficult to see that the Azure Dragon Star system wanted to kill everyone present in the Fire Phoenix Star system. In fact, the Azure Dragon Star system was not the only one who would use such a method. The Fire Phoenix Star system had also devised such a method several times and killed many powerhouses from the Azure Dragon Star system. Unfortunately, it was the Fire Phoenix Star system's turn this time. Fleeing was definitely impossible. In the face of a war between two galaxies, who would dare to flee at the last minute? At that time, not only would they lose face, but they would also lose their lives. After all, this would affect the morale of the army. They had the idea of fighting to the death, but unfortunately, the difference in strength and numbers was not so easy to make up for. Just as the battle was about to come to an end and the Azure Dragon Star system's powerhouses were about to kill, several figures suddenly appeared on the battlefield. These people were Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. TSK. Are they trying to bully us with numbers? Are they trying to bully our Fire Phoenix Star system? Seeing the sudden appearance of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, the Azure Dragon Star system's holy ancestor powerhouses' expressions changed. On the other hand, the Fire Phoenix Star system side was overjoyed. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. Chapter 33-38. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy's experts, who had thought that they were going to die for sure, became excited when Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others appeared. After all, if they could live, who would want to die? Even the several Sacred Ancestor Realm experts were pleasantly surprised. The reinforcements are here. Brothers, the reinforcements are here. Kill. For a time, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's experts' morale soared. On the other hand, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's experts' hearts sank. There was nothing they could do. Originally, they had the absolute advantage. Once their Sacred Ancestor Realm experts killed the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's Sacred Ancestor Realm experts, they would definitely win the battle. But who would have thought that when the battle was about to end, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's reinforcements would arrive? Moreover, there were so many Sacred Ancestor Realm experts. What are you afraid of? Even if the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's reinforcements are here, so what? Kill. At this time, one of the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Sacred Ancestor Realm experts shouted. There was no other way. They had to stabilize the army's morale. Moreover, in his opinion, the Azure Dragon Galaxy might not necessarily lose. First of all, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's Sacred Ancestor Realm experts were basically crippled. They didn't have much combat strength left. On the other hand, because they had the advantage in numbers and strength, they didn't suffer any serious injuries. Therefore, as long as the reinforcements were defeated, the Azure Dragon Galaxy could still win. In this regard, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Sacred Ancestor Realm experts were more confident. The reason was very simple. This time, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Sacred Ancestor Realm experts could be said to have several ruthless people. They were quite famous in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, not to mention the Sacred Ancestor Realm experts. They could be said to be invincible. With these ruthless people overseeing the situation, they were confident in dealing with Sacred Ancestor Realm experts. They felt that there wouldn't be any problem. However, although the Azure Dragon Galaxy's experts were confident in themselves, they had overlooked a problem. That was the strength of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. The Azure Dragon Galaxy had several ruthless people, but what about Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others? This was no longer a ruthless person, all right? This was a wolf that had died. At the same level, the Azure Dragon Galaxy was confident that they could win, but Long Qing and Lin Yuan were also confident. They had never lacked an invincible heart. Without wasting any time, Lin Yuan arrived in front of the divine ancestor powerhouses of the Fire Phoenix galaxy that had already been beaten to a pulp. We'll deal with them. You guys go deal with the others. Given the current situation of these people, it was impossible for them to contend against a holy ancestor realm master, so they could only deal with the low-level cultivators of the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Even though they were quite unwilling, they understood their current situation, so they did not refuse in the end and only gave some instructions. Be careful, these people are not weak. These people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy were indeed not weak, but to Lin Yuan and Long Qing, as long as they were not Battle Ancestor Realm Kings, there would be no problem. He nodded slightly, obviously not taking it to heart. In response, the divine ancestor powerhouses of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy could only leave helplessly. In their current situation, they really could not help Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others. Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others glanced at the powerhouses of the Azure Dragon Galaxy in front of them and instantly locked their eyes on three of them. These three people's cultivation bases were at the peak of the divine ancestor realm, and their auras were strong. It seemed that they were only a step away from the Battle Ancestor Realm Kings. Among the crowd, these three people's cultivation bases were the highest. For a moment, Lin Yun was the first to speak. Don't fight with any of them. They're mine. These three opponents were not bad. Hearing this, the faces of the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy instantly darkened. Was this guy courting death? He actually wanted to fight 1 against 3? Hearing Lin Yuan's words, the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy only felt that he was boasting shamelessly. What a joke! These three people were the strongest among them. Each of them could be said to be invincible in the divine ancestor realm, but Lin Yuan wanted to fight 1 against 3. However, soon, a scene that made the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy even angrier appeared. As soon as Lin Yuan's voice fell, Long Qing immediately said, "Dream on, in your dreams. These three are mine. You can choose the rest." No. I think these three people are just right for me. I'll leave the rest to you." As soon as Long Qing's voice fell, Lin Hu quickly spoke up. Then the monk and Taoist also spoke up. Hearing this, Lin Yuan was immediately dissatisfied. What a joke. These people are so weak. What's the point of fighting with them? Cut the crap. I want these three. Same for me. The others are too weak. It's boring. You make it sound like I like those weak people. Seeing Lin Yuan, Long Qing, Lin Hu, and the others quarreling over who to fight over, the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy were a little confused at first. However, they soon recovered from their shock. Were these people mocking them? They were all divine ancestor realm cultivators, but in the eyes of Lin Yuan and the others, they were as weak as ants. For a moment, the divine ancestor realm powerhouses in the Azure Dragon Galaxy felt insulted. These people from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy deserve to die. How dare they look down on others? Their hearts burned with anger, and so did the three-peaked divine ancestor realm powerhouses. You're courting death. Immediately, the three of them took the initiative to attack. It was obvious that they wanted to kill Lin Yuan and the others. Seeing that the people of the Azure Dragon Galaxy had taken the initiative to attack, Lin Yuan and the others stopped quarreling and laughed excitedly. Good timing. After saying that, Lin Yuan was the first to charge forward. Seeing this, Long Qing and Lin, who naturally did not dare to show weakness, and followed closely behind. Soon, the 6 of them were engaged in a fierce battle. Lin Yuan, who had originally planned to fight 1 against 3, cursed when he saw Long Qing and Lin, who snatching his opponents away. Don't meddle in other people's business. Get lost. It's the 2 of you who should get lost. I'll take care of these 3. Bullsh asterisk T. I was the one who chose them first. Both of you get lost. Even in the midst of a fierce battle, the 3 of them were still chattering away. The 3 powerhouses from the Azure Dragon Galaxy were enraged. How much do they look down on them? What's the point of pretending at a time like this? Immediately, the 3 powerhouses from the Azure Dragon Galaxy no longer held back and attacked furiously. They were determined to kill Lin Yuan and the others on the spot. Did they really think that they were a big shot? They did not take the 3 of them seriously at all. Fighting 1 against 3? What a joke. Attacks rained down on Lin Yuan and the others like a storm. However, the three of them did not panic at all. Oh, they're anxious. Please add vote recommend. Chapter 33-39. The three divine ancestor realm experts from the Azure Dragon Galaxy felt insulted and attacked even more viciously, showing no mercy. Their minds were filled with thoughts of how to kill Lin Yuan and Lin Hu. The three of them were simply too arrogant. They had really wronged Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Lin Hu. The three of them really did not mean to insult anyone. At most, they simply did not take the three of them seriously. Facing the three divine ancestor realm experts from the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and Long Qing still looked relaxed. They fought fiercely with their opponents without the slightest bit of pressure. I heard that you are the strongest divine ancestor realm experts in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Lin Yuan spoke unhurriedly as he fought with his opponent. There was a faint smile on his face the entire time. Seeing Lin Yuan's expression, the divine ancestor realm expert from the Azure Dragon Galaxy snorted coldly. Clearly, he had no intention of replying, but his attacks became even more vicious. Lin Yuan was not angered by this. He continued to speak as if he was talking to himself. If that's really the case, your Azure Dragon Galaxy is too disappointing. Is this the strongest divine ancestor realm expert? You're courting death. After being ridiculed by Lin Yuan again and again, the divine ancestor realm expert could no longer hold back. With a furious roar, he charged forward as if he was going to trade his life for Lin Yuan's. Oh, you're so anxious? Your temperament is so unstable. How did you cultivate to the divine ancestor realm? Lin Yuan only had a mocking expression in response, infuriating the divine ancestor realm expert even more. He must tear this brat's mouth apart. The divine ancestor realm expert thought that Lin Yuan was only good at talking. Little did he know that Lin Yuan's strength was not weak at all. In his fury, the divine ancestor realm expert only focused on killing Lin Yuan. He was indeed full of flaws. Moreover, he was too anxious to kill Lin Yuan, so he did not even think about defending himself. Perhaps in his opinion, it was worth it even if he was injured as long as he could kill this brat with a foul mouth. However, he did not consider that it was fine to trade injuries for lives. But the prerequisite was that one's strength could not be weaker than the other party. Otherwise, it would not be exchanging injuries for lives, but exchanging lives for injuries. The reality was that Xiao Chun was stronger than the divine ancestor realm expert. Therefore, the divine ancestor realm expert's actions were just courting death in Lin Yuan's opinion. Lin Yuan attacked with hatred, throwing a punch at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan did not have the slightest intention of dodging the attack. It was obvious that he intended to take this person's punch head-on and at the same time attack. Seeing this, a cold smile appeared on that person's face. That's exactly what I want. Watch me kill you with one punch. As he thought about it, his fist had already landed on Lin Yuan's body. However, the moment his fist came into contact with Lin Yuan's body, the man's expression changed completely. He felt as if he had just slammed into a huge mountain. Divine ancestor realm had a divine ancestor realm experts, divine ancestor realm seriously. He couldn't help but think, how is this guy's physical body so strong? He took my punch head on and did not even avoid hitting his vitals. How could he be unharmed? Lin Yuan's physical body was indeed beyond the divine ancestor realm expert's imagination. He did not know that Lin Yuan's physical body was the strongest among all of them. Even if it was Long Qing, Lin Hu was no match for him. Therefore, it had to be said that the divine ancestor wanted to exchange injury for injury, which was exactly what Lin Yuan wanted. A strong physical body was an asset. He was not afraid of trading injuries for injuries. Before the divine ancestor realm expert could react, Lin Yuan's fist was already flying towards him. It was the same fist, and it almost hit the same left chest area. However, the result was completely different. Apart from a trickle of blood flowing out from the corner of Lin Yuan's mouth, he did not suffer any serious injuries. However, Lin Yuan's punch landed on the Holy Ancestor Realm expert's body. However, the Divine Ancestor Realm expert's sternum caved in instantly. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. In fact, the Divine Ancestor Realm expert had already guessed that Lin Yuan's physical body was so terrifying. After all, if Lin Yuan's physical body was so strong, how weak could his strength be? However, Lin Yuan's strength was still beyond the Divine Ancestor Realm expert's imagination. To be honest, if the Divine Ancestor Realm expert had not gone crazy and wanted to kill Lin Yuan as soon as possible, it would not be easy for Lin Yuan to deal with him. It wouldn't be easy for Lin Yuan to heavily injure him. He could only blame himself for losing his mind. He couldn't blame anyone else. He exchanged injuries with Lin Yuan. The result was that Lin Yuan was lightly injured while he was seriously injured. Although it was not life-threatening, his condition was obviously incomparable to Lin Yuan's. He was not Lin Yuan's match even when he was at his peak, let alone now. Moreover, in his eyes, his current injuries were actually giving Lin Yuan a chance to kill him. If the Divine Ancestor Realm expert wanted to leave in his peak condition, Lin Yuan really could not do anything to him and was not confident that he could make him stay. However, now that he was seriously injured, he could not leave just because he wanted to. As long as Lin Yuan was willing, he could make this Divine Ancestor Realm expert stay by paying a price. Obviously, both of them understood this, so Lin Yuan did not give the Divine Ancestor Realm expert any chance to catch his breath. He immediately chased after the Divine Ancestor Realm expert. Seeing this, how could this person not know what Lin Yuan was thinking? Lin Yuan wanted to kill him while he was sick. Seeing that he was seriously injured, Lin Yuan wanted to kill him completely. This time, the Divine Ancestor Realm expert could not be arrogant anymore as he felt the threat of death. He threw all thoughts of exchanging injuries and risking his life to the back of his mind. Facing the threat of death, he did not hesitate at all and was ready to escape. However, it was not easy to escape now. It depended on whether Lin Yuan was willing or not. Lin Yuan was obviously unwilling. Both sides were about to go to war. If he had the chance to kill the Divine Ancestor Realm expert, how could he let him escape? Moreover, killing a Divine Ancestor Realm expert might not cause a great loss to a galaxy, but it was better than nothing. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? Stay. Lin Yuan quickly caught up with the Divine Ancestor Realm expert. This time, the Divine Ancestor Realm expert did not even care about getting angry in the face of Lin Yuan's mockery. What a joke. Why would he care about this little mockery when he was about to lose his life? He mustered up all his strength to escape from the battlefield. Unfortunately, Lin Yuan did not give him a chance at all. He quickly attacked again and entangled the Divine Ancestor Realm expert. The Divine Ancestor Realm expert was not in the mood to continue fighting. He was only thinking about how to escape. For a moment, Lin Yuan chased him all over the battlefield, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 3340. Lin Yuan chased after the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Divine Ancestor Powerhouse. Both the Azure Dragon Galaxy and Fire Phoenix Galaxy's cultivators were dumbfounded by this comical scene. What was going on? We're all Divine Ancestor Realm cultivators, so why are you being chased like a dog and killed like that? The Azure Dragon Galaxy's cultivators were speechless, while the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side was extremely excited. After all, on this battlefield, Divine Ancestor powerhouses could already be considered the top existences. After all, so far, the Battle Ancestor Realm Kings and Sovereigns of both sides had yet to enter the battlefield. Divine Ancestor powerhouses were key figures who could determine the outcome of battle. At the same time, they were the source of the army's morale. As long as the Divine Ancestor powerhouses on one side were strong enough, it would definitely raise the morale of the army. Therefore, when they saw Lin Yuan chasing after the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Divine Ancestor powerhouse and killing the strongest Divine Ancestor powerhouses, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy side was completely excited. Kill! With their morale greatly boosted, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's cultivators charged forward as if they had been injected with chicken blood. As for the Azure Dragon Galaxy's cultivators, they were instantly suppressed. Damn it, is this guy crazy? Seeing that Lin Yuan had no intention of letting him go, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Battle Ancestor Realm King's heart burned with anger, but he didn't dare to stop moving. Even so, he was still suffering from Lin Yuan's attacks. Lin Yuan, who now had the upper hand, had completely transformed into a scoundrel. Relying on his stronger physical body, Lin Yuan had become completely undefended, but the Divine Ancestor Powerhouse didn't dare to attack Lin Yuan. What a joke. If he attacked Lin Yuan's attack would probably land on him in the next second. At that time, even if he could injure Lin Yuan, what about himself? He would definitely suffer more than Lin Yuan. Firstly, he was already seriously injured, and secondly, Lin Yuan's physical body was stronger, and more powerful. If he was seriously injured, even escaping would be an extravagant hope. Lin Yuan's abandonment of defense also completely destroyed this person's last hope. If Lin Yuan still chose to defend, this person would have more chances to escape. However, Lin Yuan had no intention of defending at all and was wholeheartedly focused on killing him here. As a result, it would be much more difficult for him to escape. Damn it, could it be that I really can't escape this calamity? The man roared furiously in his heart as he sensed the increasingly dense aura of death enveloping him. However, his angry roar could not change anything. Lin Yuan was still in the mood to kill. You can't run away. Damn it. After a fierce chase, the man's injuries became more and more serious, and the possibility of him escaping became lower and lower. Just like that, Lin Yuan seized an opportunity and charged forward, injuring the man once again. Perhaps he knew that he had no chance of escaping, so he stopped running. He turned around and glared at Lin Yuan. You want to kill me? It's not that easy. Do you want to die together? He could tell what this person was thinking at a glance. However, he was too naive. In his current situation, even if he wanted to perish together, it was impossible. Without wasting any time, Lin Yuan dodged, and his fists rained down like a torrential rain. In the beginning, this person was able to block one or two of Lin Yuan's attacks. However, as the attacks continued, this person found it increasingly difficult to block Lin Yuan's attacks. Lin Yuan's fists rained down on this person's body like raindrops. After his body exploded into a bloody mist, it quickly recovered, and then exploded again. The cycle repeated. Naturally, a Divine Ancestor Realm expert was not that easy to kill. However, the scene in front of them made many people's scalps go numb. Even a Divine Ancestor Realm expert could not withstand such an attack. This guy was really ruthless. Was he trying to kill this Divine Ancestor Realm expert from the Azure Dragon Galaxy? In fact, this was indeed the case. Under Lin Yuan's violent attacks, this Divine Ancestor Realm expert from the Azure Dragon Galaxy exploded. Even the last bit of his divine soul was destroyed, which meant that he was completely dead. A peak Divine Ancestor Realm expert was killed just like that. After killing this person, Lin Yuan obviously did not feel satisfied. His gaze immediately fell on the other two people who were fighting fiercely with Long Qing and Lin Hu. Feeling Lin Yuan's gaze, the two people broke out in cold sweat. Long Qing and Lin Hu were already difficult for them to resist. Now that Lin Yuan was even more ferocious, what was the point of fighting? They could just wash their necks and wait for death. However, before the two of them could speak, Long Qing and Lin Hu took a step forward and shouted, "Go away, don't have any ideas about us." How could Long Qing and Lin Hu not know what Lin Yuan was thinking? He was clearly eyeing their opponent. Your opponent was killed by you, and now you're eyeing ours? What a joke. Go stay where you are. Hearing Long Qing and Lin Hu's curses, Lin Yuan smiled embarrassedly and dismissed the idea. However, as a person who could not stay idle, Lin Yuan naturally targeted the other Divine Ancestor Realm experts. The monk and the Taoist priest could not stop Lin Yuan at all. A free Lin Yuan was undoubtedly a huge blow to the Azure Dragon Galaxy. There was no doubt about this. As Lin Yuan attacked, the Azure Dragon Galaxy's divine ancestor realm experts began to fall into a complete disadvantage. In addition, Long Qing and Lin Hu, after a fierce battle, also killed their opponents at the same time. The so-called invincible divine ancestor realm experts depended on who they were compared to. The few peak divine ancestor realm experts of the Azure Dragon Galaxy were still lacking compared to Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Lin Hu. The result could be said to be unsurprising, as Lin Yuan and the other two won one after another and successfully killed their opponents. The result of the battle was obvious. The outcome of this battle was obvious. Regardless of whether it was in terms of numbers or strength, all of the divine ancestor experts had fallen into a disadvantageous position. In that case, the people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy could only return in defeat. Furthermore, this defeat was different from the previous one. Not a single person from the Azure Dragon Galaxy had been able to escape. Lin Yuan and the others' intentions were clear. Even if they won a great victory. A great victory that wiped out the entire Azure Dragon Galaxy. Many of the Azure Dragon Galaxy's cultivators had been killed, while the Fire Phoenix Galaxy welcomed its most satisfying victory since the start of the war. Although this battle could not cause too much damage to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, it was very important to raise the morale of the Azure Dragon Galaxy. When the news reached the Azure Dragon Galaxy, a Battle Ancestor Realm King was so angry that he smashed a mountain with a punch. A bunch of trash. What a disgrace. Begging to be collected, begging to be recommended. Chapter 33:41. After learning that more than 10 divine ancestor realm powerhouses and tens of thousands of low-level martial artists from the Azure Dragon Galaxy had been killed in a single battle, the king from the Azure Dragon Galaxy was livid. His name was Qianjin. The reason why he was so angry was because these people who had died in the battle were all his subordinates. In the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Qianjin was the patriarch of a large sect. Other than him, there were two other combat ancestor realm kings overseeing the sect. So many people had died in a single battle, and all of them were elites. This was a huge blow to their sect. His expression was cold, and the killing intent in his eyes almost gushed out. This group of dogs was simply trash. Even if the reinforcements from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy arrived, wouldn't they run if they couldn't beat them? Why do they have to fight to the death? In Qianjin's opinion, his subordinates, especially the three peak divine ancestor realm powerhouses, would have no problem escaping even if they couldn't beat them. After all, from the intelligence, there were no combat ancestor realm kings from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Since there were no kings, how could they not be able to escape? Qianjin obviously didn't know that they really couldn't escape and were killed. However, after losing so many people in one go, Qianjin naturally wanted to take revenge, especially Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Have you found out about those people? He looked at a divine ancestor realm powerhouse in front of him and asked. Hearing this, the divine ancestor realm powerhouse replied respectfully. Ancestor, I've found out. These people have just arrived in the western region of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. According to the intelligence, these people are the subordinates of the two kings from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's Emperor Dong's palace. But at this point, the person paused for a moment. Qianjin said with displeasure, Speak, but what? However, these two kings, Shao Chun and Lin Yun, are said to have successfully broken through to the Emperor realm some time ago. It wasn't difficult to track down the identities of Long Qing and the others. After all, it wasn't a secret. Even the breakthrough of Shao Chun and Lin Yun was found out. Of course, this wasn't strange at all. After all, Shao Chun and Lin Yun had already ascended the monarch rankings, and the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy knew that they'd broken through to the monarch realm. It was even less of a secret. Hearing that Shao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through to become rulers, Qianjin's eyes flashed with envy. This was also his pursuit. After so many years, Qianjin's cultivation had always been stuck at the peak of the War Ancestor realm, without the slightest bit of progress. He had tried countless methods, but they were all useless. At this moment, when he heard that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had just broken through to become rulers, how could he not be envious? The difference of a single step was like the difference between heaven and earth in terms of cultivation, combat strength, and status. This was the case even in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Only the emperors could truly be considered the upper echelons of a galaxy. As for the War Ancestor Realm King, perhaps in a certain region, he could be considered a peak existence. Nonetheless, in the entire galaxy, he could only be considered a core force. His status and power could not be mentioned in the same breath. Nonetheless, Qianjin knew that with his talent, it was almost impossible for him to break through to become a ruler. Unless he encountered an opportunity that could defy the heavens and change his fate, he might have a chance of survival. He quickly hid the jealousy in his heart and said coldly, "You're lucky. You're really lucky. You can leave first." Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were rulers, while Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were Xiao Chun and Lin Yun subordinates. Nevertheless, to Qianjin, it did not mean much. First of all, he was not afraid of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's deterrence because the Azure Dragon Galaxy also had a ruler overseeing it. The rulers were naturally left to the rulers to deal with. Qianjin did not have to worry about himself at all. He had already begun to plan how to take revenge on Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. They had killed so many of his subordinates, so how could he let it go just like that? If he did not vent this anger, Qianjin would not be able to calm down. While Qianjin was thinking about how to take revenge on Long Qing and Lin Yuan in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the names of Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others had been thoroughly established because of this battle. Even the rulers praised him one after another. In the main hall of the Western Imperial Palace, the rulers were dealing with various matters as usual. One of the rulers suddenly saw the battle report of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. He let out a soft cry of surprise and laughed. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Lin Hu. These few have been activated well. They wiped out tens of thousands of enemies in one battle, and even killed more than 10 Saint Ancestor Realm martial artists. Interesting. Hearing this ruler's words, the other rulers raised their heads. The Western Emperor even said with a smile, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Dong Wang, if I remember correctly, they should be from your Eastern Imperial Palace. This ruler seems to have heard of them as well. However, they should be the subordinates of Xiao Huang and Lin Huang. Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had broken through to the ruler realm and had already met Lord Star-Lord. Therefore, the rulers present had already approved of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. After all, their strength was there for all to see. However, when Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were mentioned, the two rulers of the Feng people snorted coldly. As long as Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were mentioned, the old man and old woman would be filled with displeasure. After all, they had suffered greatly at the hands of Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. These two fellows had directly killed their way to the Feng people's doorstep, causing the entire Feng people to lose face. The rulers present naturally heard the old man and old woman's cold snorts, but they had no intention of interfering. It was normal for there to be conflicts between rulers. Moreover, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were now people on the same level as them. Which one of the rulers present wasn't a shrewd person? How could they offend two rulers who were in their prime for the sake of the Feng people? Wouldn't they have nothing better to do? Moreover, the enmity between the Feng people and Xiao Chun and Lin Yun was hidden behind Huang Yi and the entire Phoenix City. Speaking of Huang Yi, almost everyone present was afraid of him. After all, he was a candidate for the Star-Lord who had surpassed the ruler realm. Even the Star-Lord's attitude towards him was different from how he treated ordinary rulers. The matter here was too complicated, so it was better not to get involved. Therefore, everyone ignored the dissatisfaction of the old man and old woman and continued to talk among themselves. In the end, it was the ruler who spoke first who suggested. This battle was not bad. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others are also good seedlings. How about this? Let's count them as second-class battle merits. What do you think? You can just take the second-class battle merits. Why are you doing this for us? Haha, it's settled then. Yes, yes. As he spoke, the ruler quickly wrote down his instructions on the battle report and directly awarded Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others with second-class battle merits. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3342. In order to stimulate everyone's enthusiasm for the battle, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy naturally set up many rewards. These rewards were judged by military exploits. There were a total of 4 levels of military exploits: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. As for the Yellow level and Black level military exploits, they only needed the decision of a ruler to be awarded. As for the Earth level military exploits, they needed 3 or more military exploits to be awarded. As for the Heaven level military exploits, which were also the highest level of military exploits, they needed 5 rulers to jointly recommend them to the Star-Lord. In the end, they would be decided by the Star-Lord. Of course, these military exploits were not empty words. Instead, they had substantial rewards. There were many rewards for each level of battle merit, such as cultivation resources, elixirs, formations, and so on. The Black level military exploits were only the 3rd level military exploits, but the rewards were already very good. This time, Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others were each given a Black level military exploits. Other than the fact that they had fought beautifully in this battle, it was more for the sake of Xiao Chun and Lin Yin. After all, the 2 of them had just broken through to rulers. It was also the intention of the rulers to give them face. After hearing this, the expressions of the Feng people's 2 great ancestors, the old man and the old woman, clearly became much more unsightly. How could the 2 of them not see through the thoughts of these rulers? But what could they do? The Feng people were no longer the Feng people of the past. Many things had changed. They did not say anything to stop them because they knew that even if they did, it would be useless. Instead, they would offend the rulers present. With gloomy faces, the old man and the old woman did not say anything and remained silent. The rewards for the Black level military exploits were soon distributed. On the same day, they were sent to Long Qing, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others. Not bad. I actually got a Black level military exploits. There are many medicinal pills as rewards. The monk and the Taoist priest nodded in satisfaction after receiving the rewards. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy had also invested a lot in the battle with the Azure Dragon Galaxy this time. The rewards were very generous. Even Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were envious of the rewards. Just as they were talking, Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian walked in. The 2 of them had been staying in the North region and had not followed the others to the Central region. After all, as array masters, compared to the Central region, the Northern region was clearly more suitable for them. Moreover, Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian had gained a lot from the North region under the care of the North King. Both of their cultivations had broken through to the divine ancestor realm. Compared to Long Qing and Lin Yuan, there wasn't much of a gap. Seeing Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian again, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Lin were all very happy. Big brother. Yes, we just arrived in the western regions. We heard that you were here too, so we came here directly. Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian had rushed over directly from the north region. When they heard that Long Qing and the others had also arrived in the west region, they immediately came to look for them. It had been a long time since they last saw each other. When they met again, they naturally had to drink and chat merrily. That's right, we're the 2 of them. While drinking, Xin Yuan Ling also confirmed that Xiao Chun and Lin Yin were cultivating in seclusion at the Star-Lord's place, so he didn't say much. After all, this was a good thing. To be able to have the opportunity bestowed by the Star-Lord was naturally something that they couldn't ask for more. In fact, this time, Xin Yuan Ling and Li Tian weren't the only ones who rushed to the West region. In the entire Northern region, almost 80% of the Array Masters have been transferred to the West region, including the North King himself, who had rushed over personally. It should be known that the Array Masters were very important in the battle between 2 galaxies. Under the circumstances of being prepared in advance, the Array Masters could definitely play an important role in reversing the situation of the battle. Therefore, almost all the array masters in the North region had rushed to the West region. At present, all the martial artists in the Fire Phoenix galaxy were basically divided into several groups. The logistics group was responsible for the supply of resources and other miscellaneous matters. Almost all the people in the logistics group were martial artists with low cultivation bases. Because they weren't strong, it was almost meaningless for them to go to the battlefield. It was better to let them handle these trivial matters. Of course, the people in the logistics group had the lowest status. For example, Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others have been in charge of their daily lives during this period of time. To put it bluntly, they were similar to the servants and maids. Above the logistics group were the healing group, the array master group, and the combat group. The healing group was made up of alchemists, and the people in charge of this group were 2 alchemist rulers. Alchemists didn't have strong combat power. Letting them fight was obviously a waste of resources. Treating the injured was what they should do the most. As for the array master group, they were all made up of array masters, and almost all of them came from the North region. After all, in the entire Fire Phoenix galaxy, other than the Star-Lord, the North King's cultivation base in formations was the highest. She was the most suitable to lead the entire array master group. As for the combat group, needless to say, they were people who directly participated in the battle. They were also the largest group. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others were all part of the combat group. As for the combat group, they were led by a group of rulers, and each ruler led a group. As for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, because they were still in closed-door cultivation, they hadn't been arranged to have their own direct troops for the time being. As for Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, they were temporarily under Dong Huang's command. Of course, when Xiao Chun and Lin Yun came out of closed-door cultivation, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others would definitely return to their command. Moreover, they would also compensate other martial artists. Basically, in the combat group, every ruler had at least 100,000 martial artists under his command. Among them, there were at least 10 Warlord Realm Kings, at least 100 Divine Ancestor Realm Kings, and at least 10,000 Ancient Creatures and World Lords. Needless to say, there were also martial artists under them. In order to start the real war with the Azure Dragon Galaxy, such a division had long been prepared. Moreover, every ruler in the combat group had their own area to be responsible for. After all, the space-breaking barrier between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy was very long. Moreover, both sides had the ability to break through the space-breaking barrier. No one knew where a passageway connecting the 2 galaxies would suddenly appear. Therefore, almost every place needed special attention, and each ruler was in charge of section, which was the best choice. It was almost impossible to miss anything. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were in charge of a section of the space-cutting barrier that was hundreds of thousands of kilometers long in the east. However, at this time, everyone still didn't know that someone in the Azure Dragon Galaxy had already begun to plan something. This matter was aimed at Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3343. In the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Qianjin looked at the dozen or so Divine Ancestor Realm martial artists in front of him and said calmly, "Are you all ready?" "Sir, don't worry. Everything is ready." "Very good. This time, we must kill Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others." Ever since Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others had killed more than a dozen combat Ancestor Realm powerhouses in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Qianjin had been plotting revenge. Moreover, Qianjin's idea was supported by an Emperor Realm expert in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. It was not because of the relationship between the Emperor Realm expert and Qianjin, but because Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were too big of a threat. Although Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were nothing in the eyes of the Emperor Realm expert, what if Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others broke through to the combat Ancestor Realm? At that time, it would be completely different. Based on their current strength, once they stepped into the combat Ancestor Realm, it would be very troublesome. Furthermore, for such a talented and powerful person, wouldn't it be the best choice to kill him while he was still in his infancy. Because of this, the Emperor Realm expert in the Azure Dragon Galaxy did not think much after hearing about Qianjin's plan. He immediately decided to support Qianjin's plan. It was also because of this that Qianjin received a lot of help. This time, the ones preparing to attack Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were 3 combat Ancestor Realm kings. With 3 kings attacking at the same time, even Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others would not be able to escape no matter how powerful they were. Qianjin's plan was simple and not complicated. First, he would send people to pretend to attack like normal to attract Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. As long as Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others entered the battlefield, Qianjin and the other 2 kings would attack and kill them with lightning speed. At that time, even if the Fire Phoenix Galaxy received the news, it would be too late to rescue them. It was a simple method, but it was very practical. In Qianjin's opinion, Long Qing and the others would definitely die this time. He had an Emperor Realm expert on his side and received so much support. If he could not deal with a few Divine Ancestor Realm martial artists, then he should really kill himself. Let's move. He spoke to the group in front of him in a deep voice. The 12+ Divine Ancestor experts quickly left and hurried towards the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. This time, Qianjin had arranged a total of 12 Divine Ancestor Realm experts and over 10,000 cultivators of various levels. On the surface, it looked like an ordinary attack. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy shouldn't have noticed anything. After these people left, a man and a woman appeared on the left and right of Qianjin. These 2 were the kings that the sovereign had sent to help Qianjin. The strength of the 2 of them was about the same as the previous Jinxiang. They were both at the War Ancestor Realm large success. The 2 of you, let's go as well. Yes, let's get to the bottom of this as soon as possible. The Emperor is still waiting for news. Just a few sacred ancestor ants are worth the sovereign's concern. These people aren't weak. The ruler wants us to get rid of them as soon as possible, lest something unexpected happens. It must be said that the ruler of the Azure Dragon Galaxy was indeed very cautious. Even though Lin Yuan and the others were only at the Battle Ancestor Realm in the Long Qing, this ruler still did not lower his guard. He even sent out such a lineup just to kill them in the cradle. Since the sovereign took this matter so seriously, Qianjin and the others naturally did not dare to be careless. If they failed this time, the 3 of them would definitely be punished. On this day, over 10,000 cultivators from the Azure Dragon Galaxy launched a large-scale attack on the boundary between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy, which Dong Wang was in charge of. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy cultivators in charge of guarding the front line were unable to resist for a while and immediately sent back a message asking for help. The Azure Dragon Galaxy side did not stop this at all. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy did not notice this at all. In the Western Imperial Palace, Dong Wang was originally drinking tea in the courtyard when a king suddenly appeared and respectfully reported to him. "Old man, something happened at the front line. The people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy are attacking again, and this time the lineup is not small." This king was also from the Eastern Imperial Palace and had followed Dong Wang all the way to the Western Domain. Hearing this, Dong Wang's expression did not change much, and he said unhurriedly, "What about the War Ancestor Realm kings?" In Dong Wang's opinion, he only cared about one question, and that was whether the Azure Dragon Galaxy had sent out any War Ancestor Realm kings. In response, the king replied, "For the time being, we haven't found any traces of War Ancestor Realm kings. They shouldn't have moved out." In the short term, Dong Wang and the other emperors were thinking of slowing down the pace of the situation as much as possible. In other words, they had to control their combat experience below the War Ancestor Realm kings. This was because some preparations had not been completed yet. If a war between kings, or even emperors, broke out at this time, the consequences would be very serious. Putting everything else aside, the reinforcement of the Western Domain had not been completed yet. The reinforcement of the Western Domain space had to be completed. Otherwise, with the current situation of the Western Domain space, it would not be able to withstand a war between so many emperors. At that time, even if they won, the entire Western domain would probably be completely destroyed. The price was too great, and the Fire Phoenix galaxy could not bear it all. Secondly, there was the evacuation of the low-level cultivators from the Western domain. There were tens of billions of people living in the Western domain. Not all of them were powerhouses with high cultivation bases. It could even be said that most of them did not have high cultivation bases. If these people did not evacuate, there would not even be any aftermath of the battle. Just a little bit of aura pressure would be enough to kill these people. Low-level cultivators were the cornerstone of every galaxy. Naturally, they could not let them die in vain. After all, the powerhouses were born from these ordinary cultivators. Before this work was completed, the emperors did not want to break out into a war with the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Hearing that the Azure Dragon Galaxy did not intend to send out War Ancestor Realm Kings, Dong Wang thought for a moment and said, "Let Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others go. If they're only holy ancestors, they shouldn't have a problem." Among the holy ancestors under Dong Wang, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were the strongest. Faced with the aggressive attack of the Azure Dragon Galaxy this time, Dong Wang thought for a moment and sent Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others out. Regarding this, the king did not say much. He only listened to Old Master Dong Huang's orders. Yes. After responding, he turned around and left, leaving Dong Huang alone. Dong Huang's eyes were deep as he said indifferently, "The progress should be faster, especially the reinforcement of the space. The Azure Dragon Galaxy should be done soon." He knew that once the preparatory work was over, it would be the time for both sides to truly erupt. At this moment, there was not much time left. Please collect monthly vote recommend. Chapter 3344. Unaware that it was all a trap, Dong Wang still sent Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others to the battlefield. The order quickly reached Long Qing and Lin Yuan's ears. No one thought too much about Old Master Dong Wang's order. After all, in the current situation, this kind of battle could be said to be common, and no one noticed that something was wrong. Only Li Tian and Xian Yuan Ling took out a few formation plates and handed them to everyone when they heard that Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were going to the battlefield. This is formation plates personally refined by the North Emperor. Keep them for self-defense. There's no need. They're just some divine ancestor powerhouses, Lin Hu said casually. In response, Lin Hu casually said, at the same level, Lin Hu really didn't feel that he needed to rely on any external help. However, Li Tian said in annoyance, it's always better to be safe than sorry. Moreover, on the battlefield, who knows what will happen? It's not a bad thing to have some trump cards in hand. Li Tian and Xian Yuan Ling did not think too much about it. At least, they were worried about their safety. After all, they were now part of the formation team, and it was impossible for them to go to the front line for such a small-scale battle. Right now, the formation was not right. The most important task was to reinforce the space in the western region and set up many formations. If they did not go to the front line, there was not much point in keeping these formation plates. It was better to give them to Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others. Perhaps they could be used at a critical moment. No one could say for sure. Moreover, the formation plates, personally refined by the North Emperor, were difficult to break even for combat ancestor powerhouses. If they were in danger, they could at least help Long Qing and the others hold on for a few hours. At that time, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would be able to provide support in time. As long as the Emperor did not intervene, Long Qing and the others should not be in any danger with these formation plates in their hands. Hearing Li Tian's words, although Lin Yuan and the others did not feel that they could use these things, they did not refuse. They nodded and put them into their space rings. All right, we're going. After bidding farewell to Li Tian and Xian Yuan Ling, the group quickly left the Western Imperial Palace and rushed toward the boundary. They didn't encounter any danger along the way and arrived at the battlefield without a hitch. This time, the Azure Dragon Galaxy could be said to have come with great momentum. The cultivators on the front lines found it difficult to resist, but with the arrival of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others, the situation of the battle was quickly reversed. Reinforcements are here. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, it really is them. Many of the people present were from Emperor Dong's palace or warriors from the eastern region. Lin Yuan was no stranger to Long Qing. Seeing that it was them, the morale of the warriors was greatly boosted. When Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others saw the 12 Holy Ancestor Realm experts from the Azure Dragon Galaxy on the battlefield, they immediately charged forward to stop them. Everything seemed to be as normal as it could be. It was a battle that couldn't be more normal. This kind of battle had happened countless times in recent times. Basically, such a big battle would break out every few days. Everyone had long become accustomed to it. However, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others obviously didn't realize that there were already 3 pairs of eyes watching them from the dark. Qianjin and the other 2 had been lying in ambush. The 3 of them were kings of the combat ancestor realm. Naturally, no one present noticed their presence. At this moment, seeing Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others arrive, Qianjin's eyes suddenly surged with killing intent. Looks like it's a success. They didn't find anything. The woman at the side said faintly. Her eyes were fixed on Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others from the beginning to the end. It could be seen that they were really strong. Almost as soon as they joined the battle, they directly turned the whole situation around. Such strength was already considered a top existence in the Holy Ancestor realm. Even the man at the side nodded slightly. They are indeed very strong. Even in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, there are only a few Holy Ancestor realm experts with such combat strength. We really can't underestimate them. Looks like Lord Emperor's decision is right. If we don't get rid of them as soon as possible, when they break through to the combat ancestor realm, I'm afraid that it will be very difficult for us to take them down. The 3 of them acknowledged the combat strength of Lin Yuan, Long Qing, and the others in their hearts. The Emperor's vision was still far-sighted. When he heard the news, he didn't hesitate in the slightest and decided to fully support Qianjin to get rid of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. If not for this, if Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others continued to grow, it would be very troublesome in the future. However, now that Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others had already fallen into the trap, they didn't have the slightest chance to escape. It's said that they're the subordinates of the Fire Phoenix Galaxies Xiao Huang and Lin Huang. Furthermore, they have an extremely good relationship with each other. Say, if we were to kill them and Xiao Huang and Lin Huang were to find out about it, wouldn't they become furious and chase after us without regard for anything else? It's fine. When the time comes, Lord Emperor will naturally deal with it. Our mission is only to kill them. However, Lord Emperor also said that it's best if we can capture them alive and bring them back to the Azure Dragon Galaxy. If we can get them to join us, it will be a good thing for Lord Emperor. Lord Emperor cherishes talents. If there's a chance, we'll capture them alive. If there's no chance, we'll just kill them to prevent future troubles. They also wanted to subdue Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. However, this idea was unlikely to be realized. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others would rather die than betray Xiao Chun and Lin Yan. This was absolute. After all, no one knew just how deep the bond between them was along the way. With this kind of relationship, it was obviously impossible for outsiders to subdue Long Qing and the others. The battle had already entered a white-hot stage. Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others had been suppressing the group of Azure Dragon Galaxy's Saint Ancestor Realm experts. The gap between the 2 sides was indeed not small, and it was visible to the naked eye. However, just when everyone thought that the battle was about to be won, no one expected that a combat Ancestor Realm King would suddenly make a move. Qianjin and the other 2, who had been hiding in the dark, appeared at the same time and immediately blocked the path of Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Obviously, they were prepared and didn't give them any chance to escape. Facing the sudden appearance of 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings, everyone on the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's side panicked. Someone even said in disbelief, "How is this possible? Why would a combat Ancestor Realm King appear? Damn it." Even Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others' faces sank. It seemed that these 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings had been hiding in the dark for a long time. They didn't just arrive, but premeditated. This was simply a trap set by others. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 3345. The appearance of Qianjin and the other 2 combat Ancestor Realm Kings stunned everyone present. After all, no combat Ancestor Realm Kings had participated in the battle until now. But now the Azure Dragon Galaxy had actually sent out 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings. Moreover, Qianjin and the other 2's target was very clear. They were obviously targeting Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. The 3 of them formed a triangle, completely sealing off Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others' escape route. Without hiding his intentions, Qianjin said coldly, "Obediently give up resisting, and you might be able to keep your lives." These words were naturally directed at Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Hearing this, everyone present knew that Qianjin and the other 2's target was Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. But why did Long Qing and the others attract the attention of the War Ancestor Realm Kings? Furthermore, it was a total of 3 War Ancestor Realm Kings. It was reasonable to say that Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were very talented. But even so, with their current strength, they were no match for combat Ancestor Realm Kings, let alone threaten them. However, the combat Ancestor Realm Kings of the Azure Dragon Galaxy had their eyes on them and even personally took action. For this reason, they did not hesitate to put on such a big show. Could it be that they wanted to capture Long Qing and the others? It was a little strange, but the reality was as such. Hearing Qianjin's words, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others' faces turned grave. They knew that they had fallen into a trap and had fallen into the Azure Dragon Galaxy's trap. Although they were very confident in their own strength, Long Qing and the others had never thought that they would be a match for 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings. Even if they had the advantage in numbers, they had no chance of winning. This had nothing to do with talent. The difference in cultivation was too great. They were simply unbeatable. They looked coldly at Qianjin and the others. Facing Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others' gazes, Qianjin and the others were very calm and relaxed. "Give up resisting and come with us. Otherwise, we'll kill without mercy." It would be best if they could capture Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others alive. If they could not do so, the Emperor had said that they would directly kill them. They wanted to capture them and bring them to the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Hearing this, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others naturally could not agree. No matter what the reason was, it was impossible to go to the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Before Qianjin and the others took action, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others looked at each other, then took out a formation plate from their spatial rings. This was the array formation disc that Li Tian and Xinyuan Ling had given to everyone earlier. It was an array formation disc that was personally refined by the North Emperor. The formation plate, personally refined by the sovereign, was indeed able to withstand the attacks of the War Ancestor realm. Without any hesitation, he activated the formation plate. In an instant, the power of the formation surrounded Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Everyone moved so quickly that Qianjin didn't even have a chance to react. At the same time, Lin Yuan and Long Qing and the others were combat Ancestor Long Yi, and Lin Yuan were Long S's. The attack hit the array formation hard, but it didn't break at all. It didn't even leave a mark. Faced with such an outcome, the expressions of Qianjin and the other 2 turned grave. A formation plate refined by a ruler? To be able to block their attacks so easily without leaving a trace, there was only one possibility. It was a formation plate refined by a ruler. They did not expect Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Long Qing to have such a treasure. It was worth noting that a formation plate refined by a ruler was a treasure that could not be bought with money. Moreover, not all rulers could refine such a formation plate. For example, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun could not. Only those who were formation masters and had reached the ruler realm could refine such a formation plate. With the protection of the formation plate, Qian Jin and the others seemed to be unable to do anything to Long Qing and Lin Yuan. This made Qian Jin's heart burn with anger. Everything was ready, and even Long Qing and the others had walked into the trap. Who knew? They still had such a treasure on them. What was even more unacceptable was that Qian Jin and the others could not do anything. It would take at least a few hours to break the formation on the formation plate. By then, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's reinforcements would have arrived. He looked at Long Qing and Lin Yuan unwillingly. After making such a big fuss, if they still failed in the end, how embarrassing would it be? More importantly, they had the support of a ruler for this operation. If they still failed, how would they explain it to the ruler? What would happen if the emperor was enraged? 3 warlord ancestors were dispatched, but they could not even deal with a group of saint ancestors. If news of this spread back to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, they would become a laughingstock. By then, even the ruler would not be spared. After all, they were his subordinates. Damn it! With a cold expression, Qian Jin did not give up and launch another attack. However, just like before, it did not leave any traces. It could not hurt Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others at all. Things seemed to have taken a turn for the better, but it was not what Qian Jin and the others wanted to see. After confirming that Qian Jin and the others could not break the formation, Lin Yuan did not hesitate and immediately sent a message to the West Imperial Palace to ask for reinforcements. Only the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's powerhouses could deal with the 3 kings. Naturally, they saw Lin Yuan's actions. When they saw Lin Yuan take out a voice transmission talisman, Qian Jin and the others' expressions turned even uglier. It was obvious what Lin Yuan's voice transmission talisman was for. It would not take long for the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's reinforcements to arrive. The 3 of them did not have much time left. Now, the 3 of them could choose to fight with all their might and try to break the formation or retreat. Otherwise, when the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's powerhouses arrived, it was hard to say what would happen. It was very likely that the 3 of them would be in danger. Brother Qian Jin. The woman looked at Qian Jin and called out. Although she did not say anything, her meaning was clear. They could not stay for long under the current circumstances. It was safer to retreat. It seemed that they would not be able to capture Long Qing and Lin Yuan today. Even killing them had become an extravagant hope. He wanted to retire. Qian Jin was naturally unwilling. If he retreated just like that, how would he explain it to the ruler? Gritting his teeth, Qian Jin glared coldly at Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others as he spoke through gritted teeth. We can't retreat just like that, or we won't be able to explain it to the Lord. That's true, but what else can we do now? Even if the 3 of us work together, it'll take at least a few hours to break the formation plate personally refined by the ruler. There's no time at all. Yes, now's not the time to be impulsive. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3346. In the Western Imperial Palace, Old Master Donghuang received Lin Yuan's request for help immediately. Old Master Donghuang's face darkened when he learned that the Azure Dragon Galaxy had sent 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings at once. This was obviously a premeditated plan from the beginning, and the target was Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. Damn it, the Azure Dragon Galaxy has their eyes on them. Although he did not know what Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others had done to attract the attention of the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Old Master Donghuang was well aware of the relationship between the Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. If anything happened to them, Old Master Donghuang was sure that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun would go crazy. Old Master, I'll go there personally. Looking at Old Master Donghuang's grim expression, Zi Xian, Lai Wan, and the others all spoke up. Since the Azure Dragon Galaxy had already sent combat Ancestor Realm Kings, they naturally could not just stand by and watch. However, Old Master Dong Wang shook his head and rejected them. No, I'll go there personally. You guys are too slow. Old Master Dong Wang had personally gone, and the Azure Dragon Galaxy had sent 3 combat Ancestor Realm Kings, but only one Emperor had appeared. Obviously, Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others were very important to Old Master Dong Wang. Naturally, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's relationship had something to do with it, so Old Master Dong Wang decided to go there personally to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Hearing Old Master Dong Wang's words, Lai Wan, Zi Xian, and the others were shocked, but Old Master Dong Wang did not give them a chance to speak. As soon as he finished speaking, he got up and disappeared on the spot. I'm going. You guys stay here. Although sending combat Ancestor Realm Kings was enough to deal with Qian Jin and the others, the combat Ancestor Realm Kings were not as fast as the Emperor. Therefore, Old Master Dong Wang had to go there personally so that he could arrive as soon as possible and not cause any more trouble. Otherwise, if something really happened, it would be difficult to explain it to Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Xiao Chun rushed to the battlefield where Lin Yuan was in Chongqing. At the same time, on the battlefield, Qian Jin spoke resolutely to the other two. We can't just retreat like this. We have to capture at least one person. With that, Qian Jin took out a medallion from his space ring. Seeing this token, the 2 people on the left and right were stunned, and then they said in disbelief, "Are you crazy? This was refined by the ruler himself. Are you going to use it?" This token was refined by a ruler and given to Qian Jin. It could unleash a ruler's full power and was considered Qian Jin's life-saving trump card. It was impossible for him to use it unless it was a crucial moment. But now, Qian Jin actually wanted to use this token, which was why the man and woman beside him were so surprised. They also had a token like this, but they only had one. There's no other way. If we return empty-handed from this operation, what do you think the consequences will be? Therefore, we can't return empty-handed no matter what. Since the 3 of them were unable to break the formation protecting Chongqing, Lin Yuan, and the others, what about the ruler's full power? Could it not be broken? Even if he used this trump card, he could only break the formation of one of them, which meant that he could only take one person away, but it was better than nothing. It was worth noting that Qian Jin was the one who planned this, and he even took the initiative to ask the ruler for help. Therefore, Qian Jin would not allow himself to fail. Seeing as Qian Jin was going all out, the man and the woman pondered for a while, and it did not stop him. They could understand what Qian Jin meant, but they clearly did not plan to make a move. What a joke. Qian Jin could use his life-saving trump card to fight, but they could not. If they kept it, it would be their life at a crucial moment. The 2 of them would definitely not be willing to use such a treasure at such a time. Moreover, they were at most there to help this time, so they were naturally not as stressed as Qian Jin, so there was no need for them to risk their lives. Qian Jin naturally knew what they were thinking, so he did not say much. His gaze was fixed on Chongqing, who was the closest to him. I'll break the formation. The 2 of you capture her and leave. Since they were unwilling to use the token given by the ruler, it should not be a problem to capture Chongqing, right? Hearing Qian Jin's words, the man and the woman naturally would not refuse. They nodded and said seriously, "Okay, you break the formation. The 2 of us will do it. Don't hurt her. Capture her alive." They could only break one formation. If they killed her, it would be meaningless. They could only bring her back. Perhaps it would make the ruler feel better. After hearing Qian Jin's reminder, the man and the woman naturally understood this point and nodded in agreement. After saying that, Qian Jin no longer hesitated. The reinforcements from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy were probably on their way. There was not much time left for them, so they had to make a move as soon as possible. Qian Jin activated the spirit tablet without hesitation. Instantly, a terrifying aura spread out. Following that, an attack headed straight for Chongqing. This attack carried an incomparable might. It had reached the level of a ruler. Faced with this attack, the faces of Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others darkened, and they immediately said nervously, "Damn it, they have a token refined by a ruler." Chongqing. They were not sure if this formation could block the full-strength attack of a ruler. Soon, the answer was obvious. Under the full-strength attack of a ruler, the formation protecting Chongqing quickly collapsed. Although it was not completely destroyed, a hole was blasted open. Nevertheless, this was enough. Seeing this, the man and the woman did not hesitate. They immediately flashed and arrived in front of the formation. The two of them attacked at the same time. They followed the gap in the formation and directly controlled Chongqing. Then, they disappeared in a flash. The formation was broken, and Chongqing was captured. Faced with this outcome, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others naturally found it difficult to accept. The reinforcements from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy had not arrived yet, but Chongqing had been captured. Without any hesitation, Lin Yuan directly took a step out of the formation and wanted to save Chongqing. Damn it! After cursing inwardly, Lin Yuan immediately attacked the man and the woman. Seeing this, Qianjin sneered. You don't know what's good for you. I only planned to capture one of you, but I didn't expect there to be a pleasant surprise. Qianjin did not expect Lin Yuan to take the initiative to leave the protection of the formation. He immediately prepared to attack Lin Yuan. Since he had delivered himself to his doorstep, he could not blame others. If he could capture the two of them, the ruler would not blame him, right? However, just as Qianjin was about to make a move, an aura suddenly approached from afar. Sensing this aura, Qianjin's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Please collect, monthly vote recommend. If they did not use the token, the three of them would not be able to escape from Dongwang. Without any hesitation, the two of them activated their tokens almost at the same time. In an instant, two rulers' attacks blasted toward Donghuang's giant hand of spiritual power. This was the only chance the three of them had. While they were attacking with their tokens, the three of them couldn't care less about anything else and immediately flew backward. Ouyangming only had a chance to escape for a split second. The badge contained a ruler's all-out attack, but how could it resist a real ruler? Being able to stall for even a moment was already an extremely difficult task. The three of them knew this very well, so they disappeared on the spot with Longqing. Seeing that the two tokens were activated and the terrifying attacks collided with him, a cold look flashed across Donghuang's eyes. He did not expect the three of them to have ruler's tokens. Damn it, Donghuang cursed. Naturally, the tokens could not hurt him. After all, it was only a single attack, and it would not be able to continue. Having said that, after being delayed for a few breaths, Qianjin and the other two had already escaped without a trace. When Donghuang dealt with the attacks from the two tokens and arrived beside Lin Yuan and the others, Qianjin and the other two were nowhere to be seen. He glanced around coldly. I've personally made a move, but the three of them still escaped in the end? How am I going to explain this to Xiao Chun? It was not Donghuang's fault, and Xiao Chun would certainly not blame him. However, that was not what Donghuang was afraid of. He was afraid that Xiao Chun would act impulsively and do something irrational. If that happened, it would be troublesome. After all, Xiao Chun was no longer a war ancestor realm king, but a powerful ruler. As the saying went, a slight move in one part would affect the whole situation. This was what Donghuang was truly worried about. In addition, with Donghuang's understanding of Xiao Chun, this guy might really do something similar. Although Xiao Chun usually seemed very easygoing, that was because his bottom line had not been touched. He was a very principled person. Once his bottom line was touched, it would be completely different. He was furious. With the appearance of Donghuang, the battle on the field strangely stopped. The people from the Fire Phoenix Galaxy did not make any more moves, and the many cultivators from the Azure Dragon Galaxy were also nervous and did not know what to do. What kind of joke is this? A ruler has personally arrived, so what's the point of fighting? There were so many people present, and they would probably not be able to kill him in one move. The people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy seemed to have tacitly accepted their defeat and were waiting for Donghuang's judgment. However, Donghuang did not care about this at all. He had not come here for this battle, but to rescue Long Qing, Lin Yuan, and the others. However, now that Long Qing had been captured, the only good news was that Lin Yuan and the others were fine. His gaze faintly looked in the direction where Qian Jin and the others had disappeared. It was impossible to chase after them now. He estimated that the three of them had already entered the barrier. Even as a ruler, Dong Wang could not cross the barrier and go to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, right? If he really did so, Dong Wang would probably be in trouble. After all, the rulers of the Azure Dragon Galaxy were not weak, and there were many of them. At this point, there was no other way. He could only hope that Long Qing would be lucky enough to save his life. As for the rest, he would wait for Xiao Chun to come out of seclusion. Thinking of this, Dong Wang's gaze swept across the cultivators from the Azure Dragon Galaxy, and the anger in his heart could not be quelled. He coldly snorted, and a terrifying pressure soared from his body. In an instant, everyone in the Azure Dragon Galaxy was suppressed. As for the few divine ancestors, Dong Wang did not even look at them as he killed them one by one. As for the low-level cultivators, they could not even withstand Dong Wang's aura and were directly killed. It was a one-sided massacre. In the hands of Dong Wang alone, the tens of thousands of cultivators from the Azure Dragon Galaxy did not last long. Soon, they were all annihilated, and no one was left alive by Dong Wang. Dong Wang let out a breath of turbid air and looked at Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others. Let's go back first. But, hearing this, Lin Yuan hesitated. After all, they did not know whether Long Qing was alive or dead, and it was difficult for them to accept leaving just like that. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 33:48. They were unwilling to leave just like that, but even Dong Wang was at his wit's end. After sighing softly, Dong Wang could only say in a deep voice, since the other party only captured Long Qing alive, they shouldn't harm her life for the time being. Let's go back first and think of other ways. Dong Wang's words were considered comforting everyone, but there was one thing that he did not say. Once Long Qing was brought to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, many things would be irreversible. The possibility of saving her would be almost zero. This was because even a ruler would not dare to directly cross the barrier and enter the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Even if one went to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, could one reach its hinterland? One would be blocked at the border. This was the same reason why people from the Azure Dragon Galaxy could not appear in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy's West Imperial Palace. Unless the Fire Phoenix Galaxy won the war, there might still be a chance. However, could Long Qing survive until then? Dong Wang naturally did not say these words because Lin Yuan and the others would not be able to accept it. Forget it. Let's take it one step at a time. I really didn't expect that even if I personally took action, I would still be a step too late in the end. Dong Wang could not be blamed for this. He had tried his best, but unfortunately, he was still a little lacking. Hearing Dong Wang's words, Lin Yuan and the others did not reply. They wished that they could rush to the Azure Dragon Galaxy to save Long Qing. Nonetheless, they also knew that if they did that, not only would they not be able to save Long Qing, but they would also lose their lives and make things even more complicated. Forcefully suppressing the various emotions in their hearts, Lin Yuan and the others followed Dong Wang back to the West Imperial Palace. On the other side, Long Qing, who had been captured by Qian Jin and the others, was brought back to the Azure Dragon Galaxy, as expected. From a certain perspective, the operation this time was a failure. They had mobilized so many people and put on such a big show, but in the end, they only managed to capture Long Qing alive. As for the tens of thousands of martial artists from the Azure Dragon Galaxy who remained, Qian Jin and the others knew that they would not have any way to survive. In front of a ruler, those low-level martial artists did not even have the chance to escape. The only good thing was that they did not return empty-handed. This could be considered an explanation to the ruler. Even so, the three of them still felt pained. They had lost so many people, and they had even used up the badges that Sir Ruler had given them. This was equivalent to the three of them losing a life-saving treasure. How could the three of them not feel uncomfortable? Actually, this isn't a bad thing. The more nervous the Fire Phoenix galaxy is, the more it means that our thinking is correct. These people are very important to the Fire Phoenix galaxy. Even a ruler has personally taken action. This is enough to explain the problem. After successfully returning to the Azure Dragon galaxy, Qian Jin and the others finally relaxed. Qian Jin even spoke slowly. Upon hearing this, the man and woman at the side did not reply. As for Long Qing, her cultivation had already been sealed by the three of them. She had no ability to resist at all. As they headed towards the hinterlands of the Azure Dragon galaxy, it wasn't too different from the Fire Phoenix galaxy. It was also a deep and endless starry sky. However, perhaps because of the great battle, there were spatial spirit boats and numerous martial artists flying past from time to time. Unlike the Fire Phoenix galaxy, the kings of the Azure Dragon galaxy did not gather together. Similarly, each ruler was in charge of a region, but the rulers all lived alone, unlike the Fire Phoenix galaxy, where all the rulers gathered in the West Imperial Palace. Qian Jin and the others returned to the palace of the ruler they belonged to. It was a very large and magnificent palace, like a small island floating in the starry sky. There were many palaces like this in the Azure Dragon galaxy, and each palace represented a ruler. As Qian Jin and the others stepped into the palace, passers-by would salute respectfully from time to time. When they met the Battle Ancestor Realm Kings, they would curiously size up Long Qing and tease her with a smile. Why did you only capture one person? Didn't you say there were several people? Many people in the Azure Dragon galaxy knew about the operation of Qian Jin and the others this time, and they also understood that this was the ruler's intention. However, it seemed that Qian Jin and the others had failed. After all, they had only captured one person. Qian Jin said helplessly. A ruler from the Fire Phoenix galaxy personally took action. If it weren't for the treasures given to us by the Lord, we probably wouldn't have been able to return. He did not hide the fact that Emperor Dong Huang had personally taken action. After all, it was understandable that the mission had failed. At least it would be easier to explain. Sure enough, after hearing Qian Jin's words, no one said anything else. It was indeed not easy to come back alive from the hands of a ruler and successfully capture one person alive. If it were them, they would not dare to guarantee that they could do better than Qian Jin. He brought Long Qing all the way to the main hall. After reporting, Long Qing saw the ruler mentioned by Qian Jin and the others. A beautiful woman was leaning lazily on a high platform, looking at Qian Jin and the others walking over, as well as Long Qing behind them. The beautiful woman smiled and said, "The ruler of the Fire Phoenix galaxy has taken action." Their conversation outside the hall was naturally heard by the beautiful woman. In response, Qian Jin and the others immediately cupped their hands and bowed respectfully. "We didn't do our job well. Please punish us, ruler." "Forget it. Since it's a ruler, it's your fault. You may leave." She did not care about the failure of Qian Jin and the others, nor did she care about the deaths of the tens of thousands of Azure Dragon Galaxy martial artists. In any case, she could have as many low-level martial artists as she wanted. At this moment, the beautiful woman was more curious about Long Qing in front of her. She felt a familiar bloodline aura from Long Qing. Hearing the ruler's words, Qian Jin and the others did not dare to say anything and immediately turned to leave. Soon, only the beautiful woman and Long Qing were left in the main hall. Facing the beautiful woman, Long Qing raised her head and looked at her, unwilling to be outdone. Even though she had become a prisoner, Long Qing did not have the slightest intention of begging for mercy. Even if she died, she was not afraid at all. "Interesting. Little thing, your bloodline power has already returned to its ancestral state, right?" With the beautiful woman's eyesight, she could naturally see at a glance that Long Qing was a dragon and that her bloodline power had already returned to its ancestral state. Hearing this, Long Qing did not speak, but the beautiful woman continued to speak with great interest. "It's indeed rare for a mixed-blood dragon to be able to evolve her bloodline to such a level. Unfortunately, your so-called ancestral state is not a true return to its ancestral state. At best, it's just an evolution. My name is Long Sun. Speaking of which, I'm considered to be of the same clan as you." As she spoke, Long Sun's body suddenly emitted a strong dragon clan pressure. This had nothing to do with the realm. It was the deterrence of the bloodline. In the face of Long Sun's pressure, Long Qing instantly felt a tremor from the depths of her bloodline sweep through her entire body. Her body could not move at all. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 3349. The Dragon Clan's aura that Long Sun emitted was extremely terrifying. It was not something Long Qing could compare to. In the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, Long Qing's bloodline power was already comparable to the ancestral dragon. However, after meeting Long Sun said that her bloodline power could not even be considered as atavism. After letting Long Qing experience her own bloodline pressure, Long Sun retracted her aura not long after. At this time, Long Qing's face was already pale, as if she was under great pressure. It was the first time Long Qing felt such a terrifying and pure bloodline pressure. It was impossible to describe what kind of feeling it was. It was as if even her soul was trembling. Actually, I was only interested in the few of you in the beginning. I just didn't expect that there would be a Dragon Clan member among you. At this time, Long Sun said unhurriedly. This was her heartfelt words. She really did not expect Long Qing to exist. Originally, Long Sun was a little dissatisfied that Qian Jin and the other two had lost tens of thousands of Azure Dragon Galaxy cultivators to only capture one person. After all, they had paid so much and only captured one person in the end. This meant that they had failed. If Dong Wang had not personally taken action, Long Sun would have punished them. However, after seeing Long Qing, Long Sun was not in the mood to care about these things. Feeling that Long Sun did not seem to have any ill intentions towards her, Long Qing looked at Long Sun with a complicated expression. Long Sun had some doubts in her heart. She seemed to have guessed Long Qing's thoughts and smiled slightly. "You are wondering why my bloodline pressure can suppress you so easily. You have never encountered such a terrifying Dragon Clan aura in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, right?" This was indeed Long Qing's doubt. After all, in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, Long Qing had followed Xiao Chun to many places. However, for the Dragon Clan, Long Qing had never seen anyone whose bloodline pressure could surpass hers. Do you know the origin of the Azure Dragon Galaxy and the Fire Phoenix Galaxy? At this time, Long Sun said something that Long Qing could not understand. There was no answer. Long Sun did not seem to care about this at all and continued to speak. The Fire Phoenix Galaxy is called the Fire Phoenix Galaxy because of the existence of the Phoenix Huang Yi clan. Ever since the birth of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the Phoenix clan was the first clan to appear. They were indeed blessed by the heavens. Furthermore, every single Star Master of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy came from the Phoenix clan or the Phoenix clan. Although there are others who have ascended to the position of Star Lord, they're just as rare as Phoenix feathers and water chestnuts. The same goes for the Azure Dragon Galaxy. When the Azure Dragon Galaxy was first born, my dragon race was the first race to appear. Thus, the dragon race of the Azure Dragon Galaxy can be said to be the purest dragon race. As for the dragon race of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, to put it bluntly, they cannot even be considered a true dragon race. Dragon Sun and Dragon Clan's Dragon Clan. You have the Dragon Clan's bloodline. You are definitely better off in the Azure Dragon Galaxy than in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. Long Sun explained briefly to Long Qing. Although she understood, Long Qing did not reply. She did not want to stay in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Long Sun had said that as a dragon, staying in the Azure Dragon Galaxy was definitely better than the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. At least for Long Qing, this was the case. The Azure Dragon Galaxy could give Long Qing many things that the Fire Phoenix Galaxy could not. There was a big difference between the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Huang Yi clan. However, these things were the most important to Long Qing. Long Qing was most concerned about Xiao Chun. Long Qing did not know what Xiao Chun would do if he found out that she had been captured. This was something that worried her. However, in the current situation, Long Qing did not seem to have a choice. She did not have any power to choose. She was already in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. It was impossible for her to leave. Even if she was worried, what could she do? This was what Long Qing was most helpless about. Long Sun seemed to have seen through Long Qing's thoughts, but she did not care. Long Sun was only interested in Long Qing. There were not many dragons that could grow to this level in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. If she was properly nurtured, she might be able to grow. Of course, Long Sun had considered Long Qing's loyalty, but she was not worried. In any case, she did not plan to let her fight with the people of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy for the time being. Moreover, Long Sun had other plans in mind. Since you are here, stay here with peace of mind. I will teach you cultivation in the future. After saying that, Long Sun did not care if Long Qing was willing or not. She called Qianjin over and told her to take good care of Long Qing before letting her leave. She did not seem to have any intention of making things difficult for Long Qing. In fact, she even treated Long Qing strangely well. They were not related to each other, but Long Sun was actually willing to teach Long Qing cultivation. This was very puzzling. No one would believe that there was no motive behind this. The truth was indeed so. After Long Qing left, Long Sun's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation as she spoke faintly. Her bloodline is a bit strange. There's a trace of pure dragon qi hidden in it. If it can be stimulated, it will probably be of great use to the young master. When she used her bloodline pressure just now, Long Qing instinctively exposed her bloodline power. At first glance, it looked very ordinary, but Long Sun was a ruler, after all. She could still clearly feel that there was something hidden in Long Qing's bloodline power. This thing was a great treasure to the dragons. Those who could possess it were definitely one in a million. Although she could not be sure now, there was plenty of time in the future. Once it was confirmed that this thing was real, Long Qing's value would be immeasurable. When the time came, she would give it to the young master. If he could get rid of Long Qing's bloodline power, he would probably be able to complete his evolution and transform into an ancestral dragon. By then, he might be able to inherit the mantle of the Azure Dragon Galaxy. That was what Long Sun thought. This was the real reason why she treated Long Qing like this. To put it bluntly, Long Sun now regarded Long Qing as a cauldron. As for the young master that she mentioned, he was the son of the Azure Dragon Galaxy's Star-Lord. Unlike the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, the Azure Dragon Galaxy had always been dominated by the dragons. No other race could contend with them at all. Moreover, the dragons were not like the phoenixes, who were divided into the Foam people and the Phoenix people, and there were no internal conflicts. Therefore, the dragon's control over the Azure Dragon Galaxy was clearly far greater than that of the phoenixes, who were Huangyis, who were in the Fire Phoenix Galaxy. This was also the biggest difference between the two galaxies. After thinking about it, Long Sun decided to confirm whether the bloodline power in Long Qing's body was what she thought it was. If it was true, she would have to stimulate the thing in the depths of Long Qing's bloodline power at all costs. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 3350. Long Qing naturally did not know what Long Sun was thinking. Even she herself did not know what was contained in her bloodline. In any case, she was already under house arrest in the Azure Dragon Galaxy. It was impossible for her to leave. Long Qing could only suppress her temper and prepare to find other ways. In the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, several days had passed, but there was still no news of Long Qing. This made Lin Yuan, Xin Yuan Ling, and the others anxious, but there was nothing they could do. After all, the spies of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy could not enter the Azure Dragon Galaxy at all, let alone bring back any news. The only thing they could be sure of was that Long Qing was still alive because her life token was not broken. As long as the life token was still intact, it proved that Long Qing was not in danger. However, in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, who could say for sure what would happen in the next second? In short, Long Qing was in a very dangerous situation. The most unacceptable thing was that there was no way to save Long Qing. Even the rulers would not be able to rush into the Azure Dragon Galaxy to save them. At this moment, Xin Yuanling, Lin Yuan, and Dong Huang were together. There was a hint of worry on their faces. Old Master, is there really no other way? Xin Yuanling looked at Dong Huang and asked with a solemn expression. Dong Huang was silent for a moment before he replied. Even if I personally take action, there's no chance of success. As for the other rulers, it's even more impossible for them to enter the Azure Dragon Galaxy. Even a ruler could die, especially when sneaking into the Azure Dragon Galaxy. This was a matter of a slim chance of survival. For example, if the ruler of the Azure Dragon Galaxy dared to enter the Fire Phoenix Galaxy, what would happen to him? The rulers of the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would probably not let him go at all. It would be the same if they were in the same situation. The best way now was to wait for the war to end. Either the Fire Phoenix Galaxy would win a great victory, or both sides would negotiate a ceasefire. Only then would there be a possibility of saving Long Qing. However, this would take too long. Moreover, no one could guarantee that there would not be any problems during this time. Now, the first thing Xin Yuanling did every day was to check Long Qing's life plate. As long as he had time, Xin Yuanling would check once, afraid that there would be any changes to Long Qing's life jade. There was nothing he could do about it. He was worried. The only reason Xin Yuanling could feel gratified was that his life tablet was intact. The rulers were not willing to make a move. Even if they were disrespectful, they would not risk their lives. As for the Star-Lord, she had to take care of the entire situation. She couldn't possibly disregard the entire Fire Phoenix star system for the sake of Long Qing alone. Let alone Long Qing, a divine ancestor realm martial artist, being captured. Even if an emperor realm martial artist was captured, the Star-Lord would not act in anger. The moment something went wrong, the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy would be injured. Such a price was too great, and no one could bear it. If there were any accidents, it would be a disaster. No matter how he thought about it, there was nothing he could do. Xin Yuanling did not say anything else, but his expression was extremely ugly. This feeling of helplessness made him very uncomfortable. Seeing this, old Master Dong Huang thought about it and could only sigh. Right now, everyone's first concern is the entire Fire Phoenix Galaxy, and there's nothing we can do about it. In my opinion, we should wait for Xiao Qian to come out of seclusion. Moreover, at least for now, Long Qing is still alive, isn't he? As long as there's nothing wrong with his life tablet, we have a chance to be friends. But, old master, although that was what he said, Xin Yuanling found it difficult to accept. Dong Huang interrupted him. There's nothing we can do about it. This is all we can do now. There were some things Dong Huang did not say. Perhaps in the future, the Azure Dragon Galaxy might use Long Qing to make an issue out of it. But who could say for sure? After all, the initiative was in the other party's hands, and there was nothing he could do. Hearing Dong Huang's words, Xin Yuanling took a deep breath and did not say anything else. They could only wait for Xiao Qian to come out of seclusion. However, even if Xiao Qian came out, so what? Even though Xiao Qian was indeed an emperor would not come out of Long Qing. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. During this half a month, the battles between the Fire Phoenix Galaxy and the Azure Dragon Galaxy became more and more frequent, and the scale of the battles became larger and larger. Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, and the others had also participated in many battles, but they did not encounter anything like before. Thinking about it, after what happened last time, the Fire Phoenix Galaxy was prepared, and it would be very difficult to succeed again. Over this half a month, the only thing that made Xin Yuanling and the others feel at ease was that Long Qing's life tablet had not changed much. This meant that even though she was in the Azure Dragon Galaxy, Long Qing's life was not in danger. As long as they could ensure this, there was at least a glimmer of hope. On this day, it was no different from any other day. However, Xiao Qian and Lin Yun, who had been in seclusion for nearly a month, came out. With the help of the Star-Lord, Xiao Qian and Lin Yun's strength had improved a lot. After leaving their seclusion, they originally wanted to see the Star-Lord. After all, He had indeed given them a great opportunity. Unfortunately, the Star-Lord was in seclusion and did not want to see anyone. Chapter 33:51. The two great ancestors of the Feng people actually took the initiative to come to them. Hearing their sarcastic voices, Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others all glared at them. The atmosphere was already abnormal because of Long Qing's matter, and these two old things actually dared to add fuel to the fire. It looked like they were deliberately looking for trouble. The old man and the old woman were indeed deliberately looking for trouble. They were not on good terms with Xiao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others. Therefore, when they learned that Long Qing had been captured alive, their first reaction was actually joy. Moreover, when they heard the news that Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had come out of seclusion, they rushed over immediately. Their purpose was naturally to mock them. As for Long Qing's life and death, they did not care at all. It was just a divine ancestor ant. Anyway, as long as Xiao Chun and Lin Yun were unhappy, they would feel comfortable. As for making a move, the old man and the old woman did not think that Xiao Chun and the others would dare to make a move in the West Imperial Palace, let alone at this time. Now that the enemy was in front of them, the Azure Dragon Galaxy had long been ready to make a move. Even a ruler could not casually make a move in the West Imperial Palace. Otherwise, they would definitely be punished by the Star-Lord. It was precisely because of this that the old man and the old woman dared to appear here fearlessly. It was just a mouthful. It was fine as long as they felt comfortable. However, the two old men obviously underestimated Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. Rules had never been a problem for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. In the past, it was not a problem, let alone now. Especially when Xiao Chun was still angry at this time. Long Qing's capture was like a bolt from the blue for Xiao Chun. At this time, the old man and the old woman actually dared to mock him. It could only be said that they were courting death. As for the problem that Xiao Chun did not dare to make a move in the West Imperial Palace, it could only be said that they took it for granted. It was true that they were facing a great enemy, and it was also true that the Star-Lord had set rules. However, whether or not he would obey them would depend on Xiao Chun himself. To Xiao Chun, he had never lacked the courage to break the rules. Moreover, this old man and old woman before him were truly asking for a beating. As emperors, they actually acted like villains who were intoxicated with success. It was enough for these two old fellows to be secretly happy that Long Qing was captured. She even dared to say it out loud. She was definitely challenging Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's confidence. "Do you want to die?" Xiao Chun said coldly as he stared coldly at the old man and old woman. Hearing this, the two were obviously stunned, but they quickly recovered, and the old woman said with a smile, "Hee, what's wrong? You won't even let me speak the truth. Is there a problem with us being happy that a piece of trash was captured?" He was not afraid of Xiao Chun at all. He even smiled provocatively at Xiao Chun. "It seems that you really want to die." Looking coldly at the old woman, Xiao Chun already had a trace of killing intent in his heart. Previously, the Star-Lord had said that within the Feng people, except for the emperors, no one could not be killed. This was to avenge Huang Yi. Otherwise, the old man and old woman would not be standing here out of fear. However, now, Xiao Chun had already thrown the Star-Lord's words to the back of his mind. The old man and old woman were really courting death. A trace of killing intent emerged in his eyes. However, the old woman did not care about it all. She seemed to be certain that Xiao Chun would definitely not dare to make a move here. "You want to kill me?" Putting aside whether you have the strength to do so, do you dare to make a move in the West Imperial Palace? Do you dare to start a battle between emperors at this time? It was simply ridiculous. The old woman was full of confidence and continued to mock him. "What? Do you want to make a move? Do you have the guts? Even if you're an emperor now, under such circumstances, if you dare to make a move in the West Imperial Palace, the Star-Lord will definitely not let you go. By then, no matter how angry I am, I can only endure it because you don't dare to make a move," the old woman thought to herself. However, something that she did not expect happened. After hearing what she said, Xiao Chun did not answer at all. Instead, his body disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of the old woman in the next second. Perhaps because she did not think that Xiao Chun would really dare to make a move, the old woman was not prepared at all. Looking at Xiao Chun, who appeared in front of her in an instant, the old woman was stunned. However, at the same time, Xiao Chun had already thrown out a punch and hit the old woman's abdomen. The powerful force directly sent the old woman flying. Like a cannonball, it pierced through countless buildings before coming to a stop. He did not intend to hold back at all. However, as the old woman was the great ancestor of the Feng people and an emperor, she naturally could not be seriously injured by a punch. However, after crawling out of the ruins, the old woman's eyes were filled with fury as she shouted angrily, "You! How dare you make a move in the West Imperial Palace? Are you not taking the Star Lord seriously at all?" The old woman took the opportunity to shout angrily. The old man beside her also questioned him after coming back to his senses. "Xiao Chun, how dare you make a move in the West Imperial Palace?" These two old things seemed to think that they had found some weakness of his and that he would be afraid of the Star Lord's punishment. Every time he opened his mouth, he was going to complain to the Star Master and make him suffer the consequences. Hearing the two scolding, Xiao Chun did not respond. However, in the eyes of the old man and the old woman, his reaction seemed to be fear. Xiao Chun dared not say anything because he was afraid of the Star Lord's punishment. As such, the two old things became more and more agitated as they talked, as if they could kill Xiao Chun. "Xiao Chun, just you wait. I'll definitely complain to the Star Lord about you." "Ha! You openly violated the Star Lord's rules by making a move in the West Imperial Palace and triggering a battle between emperors. Xiao Chun, even if you're an emperor, you're finished this time." Noisy. Hearing the two people who were getting more and more excited, Xiao Chun spat out two words with a calm and cold expression. There was no panic in his eyes at all, only endless coldness. These two old things simply did not understand the situation. At this point, did they still think that he would care about these so-called rules? If he really cared about these rules, Xiao Chun would not have made a move just now. Since he had already made a move, with Xiao Chen's character, he would definitely not hesitate or be afraid. So what if he had violated the Star Lord's rules? If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame these two old things for courting death. Xiao Chun was more than happy to oblige such people if they had a death wish. Under the gaze of the old man and the old woman, Xiao Chun directly took out the Wuchen's sword. A terrifying sword intent soared into the sky and went straight into the clouds. Seeing this scene, the old man and the old woman instantly raised their eyebrows. There was something wrong with Xiao Chun. Immediately, the old woman shouted without confidence, "Xiao Chun, what are you trying to do? Do you really want to provoke a battle between emperors? Are you openly defying the Star Lord's orders? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Since the Star Lord had already made a move, if they continued to fight, the situation would be completely different. Knowing what Lin Yun meant, Xiao Chen did not insist. He looked at Xin Yuan Ling and the others, indicating that he was fine and that they did not have to worry. Then, he rushed to the Star Lord's residence. At the same time, the old woman and the old man did the same. However, it was unknown if it was because the Star Lord had made a move. These two old fellows now felt that they could do it again. They snorted coldly at Xiao Chun and Lin Yun to express their dissatisfaction. Before the Star Lord had made a move, the two old fellows were in a sorry state. Now, they were as arrogant as they were. In this regard, Xiao Chun only had a strong sense of disdain in his heart. How could such a person become a ruler and the ancestor of clan? It was simply a joke. Ignoring the two of them who were intoxicated with success, Xiao Chun went to the Star Lord's residence expressionlessly. As soon as he appeared, he saw Elder Master Bai. When he saw Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, Elder Master Bai snorted coldly. Obviously, he was also displeased with Xiao Chun and Lin Yun's actions just now. Elder Master Bai had always been biased towards the Feng people. After all, he was a member of the Feng people. Xiao Chun was not surprised by this. However, Xiao Chun, who was already angry, was displeased when he saw Elder Master Bai's attitude. Why? Do you want to fight too? As he spoke, he looked straight at Elder Master Bai. In response, Elder Master Bai's eyes were cold and sharp, but he did not reply. He did not dare to fight with Xiao Chun here. Moreover, based on the strength displayed by Xiao Chun and Lin Yun just now, Elder Master Bai did not dare to underestimate the two of them anymore. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations.